The story begins with a boy who dreamed of fantastic buildings since elementary school. After many attempts, he finally created the perfect structure. Or at least he thought so. The story begins with a marriage proposal, a scene that had already become routine for him. At that moment, the idea that dreams could become reality was born. In the world of massive online games, virtual reality took root in Japan. Exciting battles attracted dedicated players, and the great freedom of the game, from creating furniture to erecting entire buildings, attracted craftsmen from all over the world. Including Miyabi, he spent his free time on handicrafts. Finally, he fulfilled his childhood dream, and what he created became a romantic refuge. At first, the attention annoyed him, but he got used to it. In fact, Miyabi was trapped in exhausting corporate work, so he enjoyed crafting for himself and bringing joy to others. He was proud of this achievement. One day, he received an email from the game administrator with the subject guide to Special World. Although it seemed too early to expect results, curiosity prompted him to open it. The eel praised his impressive architectural creations. He felt that the eel considered him a kind of matchmaker. This filled him with joy. As a token of gratitude, the administrators invited him to a unique world. The message asked if he would allow his data to be transferred. Convinced that deeper processing would follow, he saw no reason to hesitate, so he clicked yes. Immediately, he began to disappear. When he opened his eyes, he found himself in a forest. Assuming it was an unusual server switch, he began to look for options. Suddenly, he heard bandits ordering someone not to move and to leave the carriage. Confused, Miyabi could not understand why there were bandits in that zone, which was supposed to be safe. He thought it was a game update with very realistic graphics. A girl appeared on the screen, confronting the bandits, and their eyes met. And she gave him a strange signal. It seemed that the adventure began when he took a step forward, although its signal confused him. To distract 8 or 9 bandits, he revealed himself and shouted, asking what they were doing. The bandit leader did not lose composure. He challenged Miyabi to a fight and ordered his men to kill everyone. This was not the reaction Miyabi expected. The girl, grateful, introduced herself as Liz and attacked the bandits with her spear. He activated the stone projectile ability, and to Miyabi's surprise, a small stone hit his hand and caused real pain. Despite the difficulty of the game, there should have been no pain. At that moment, Nibai realized that he was no longer in the game, but in the real world. After the spear attack, he tied up the bandits. She said they would hand them over to the city authorities. She apologized for involving him and introduced herself properly. Miyabi brushed off her concerns and introduced himself. He noted that he had never witnessed such a battle. Liz stopped and asked if he was an adventurer. When he explained that he was a civilian, she felt very unwell. Noticing his embarrassment, she explained that his impressive armor made her assume he was a fighter. Although he looked peaceful, Miyabi apologized for the misunderstanding. Liz asked if he was going to Angela and if their paths coincided, offering to escort him as a sign of apology. He thanked her and admitted he was already lost, then asked to wait a bit before leaving to settle one matter, and Liz agreed to wait. Miyabi went into the forest and gathered branches and stones. He tried to remove the headset but couldn't, realizing he was in an unfamiliar world, so he began to act cautiously to avoid attracting suspicion. At first, he checked his skills. He tried to open the inventory, but in this world, everything worked differently than in Isekai. Thinking it might simplify things, he mentally spoke a command. Instantly, he found himself in a huge space inside Isekai. His inventory appeared not as a window, but as items floating in his head. The stones and branches he gathered were also there. Next, he decided to experiment with crafting. Working on a simple item unexpectedly made him nervous. Using branches and stones, he managed to make a table. Confirming the crafting system's operation, he noticed it was more convenient than crafting in the game because he could mentally summon recipes for anything he wanted. Although some mechanics differed, the system generally seemed familiar. Then he made a stone axe, a universal tool for chopping firewood or as a weapon, perfect for a start. It only took 10 small branches and 30 small stones, and with the axe, gathering materials would be much faster. Checking the axe, he noticed that it worked flawlessly and significantly increased the efficiency of harvesting. Even the automatic gathering functions confirmed that he could provide for himself in this real world using crafted items. He could gather materials and build anything, combining adventures with peaceful life in the home he was building for his family. He was glad that his dream was becoming reality. He returned to the carriage. Liz shuddered seeing the stone axe in his hands, and his strange facial expression embarrassed her. Miyabi quickly changed his behavior to avoid suspicion, explaining that he had crafted the axe as a possible weapon. Liz, puzzled, noticed that he had entered the forest with nothing. He explained that he would just use stones and branches to make what was needed because he realized he could craft. Liz was surprised that he went without a weapon. When Miyabi asked to use the axe, she explained that she was a sorceress. The guards wondered why the craftsman Miyabi had not hired protection. Liz sharply reprimanded them for rudeness to a stranger. Miyabi understood their position as typical. After Liz confirmed that he had all his things, they continue their journey according to the map and defeat the goblins along the way. Eventually, they noticed the large city gates of Angela, heavily guarded, indicating a large city. When they approached, the soldiers stopped them. Miyabi tensed up, but Liz calmed him down, saying it was a routine matter. Captain of Angela's squad thanked them for capturing the bandits. She asked who led their group. Miyabi listened with relief as Liz introduced herself as the leader, because the soldiers were there only to detain the bandits. A soldier checked her rank C operation report. When asked if there were 6 in the group, Liz explained that Miyabi was a civilian. The rest of the group seemed fine with Liz taking leadership. Miyabi was surprised, but Liz Countum explained that an unwritten rule makes the highest-ranking member the leader, and her rank was higher than everyone else's. Another member noted that Liz's attentiveness greatly helped the team, and Miyabi apologized, saying he was surprised because he did not expect a woman to lead, and praised her for earning the trust of experienced adventurers. After his praise, he noticed her blush. The soldiers took the bandits away. The fighting adventurers were informed about their reward, and we will come later through the Adventurers Guild. The one from the carriage thanked for the help, and the other travelers said goodbye and left Liz and Miyabi alone. Miyabi then asked Liz if he needed documents to enter the city. Liz, surprised, asked if he had lost his ID, although he had an inventory. He admitted that he never had an ID. She explained that payment was required for entry. But he had no money. He jokingly called it a double miracle because he had neither documents nor money. After a short pause, Liz reluctantly but firmly made a remark to him. She issued a temporary pass for 3 days and said that for a longer stay, he would need to get an ID from the Adventurers Guild. Inside Angela, Miyabi thanked Liz for the help and for the money she lent him, and she reminded him to return it and follow her conditions. Liz set 2 conditions. First, he had to register with the guild as an adventurer and join her party so she could track his location through the guild. This guaranteed that he would not run away. Since creating things required gathering materials, registering as an adventurer was not a problem. The second condition was to help Liz with her tasks for some time, accompany her on request, and mainly carry her equipment. Miyabi, distracted by the shops in the town, needed Liz to call him so he could refocus. Lacking combat skills, he was confident he could play a support role. He was going to go to the Adventurers Guild, but was surprised when Liz led him to the inn, saying that first he needed to rest. Charges 5 silver coins per night. From the rest of the gold coin, it turned out that 1 gold coin equals 10 silver coins. Comparing this with the cost of a business hotel at 5,000 yen, he estimated that 1 gold coin costs about 10,000 yen. Marvin received almost 20,000 yen thanks to the girl's trick, even for the adventure. Resting in the room, he decided to thank her for her kindness. The next day at the Adventurers Guild, Miyabi was captivated by the crowd. Liz, noticing his reaction, asked if he was here for the first time, and Miyabi, although familiar with guilds and games but could not admit it, said that he was from a rural area without cities, so his surprise was understandable, and she warned him not to get so excited as to get lost. Liz greeted a woman named Alina and said that their request for escort had been fulfilled. Alina greeted her and asked if Miyabi was acquainted, captivated by Alina's beauty. Miyabi smiled pleasantly and introduced himself, saying that he was registering as an adventurer on Liz's advice. Alina appreciated his politeness and introduced herself, looking closely at Miyabi. Liz teased that his nose was getting longer. He insisted that it was a usual greeting and said that meeting Liz did not allow him to calmly introduce himself, and Alina asked Liz for the adventure card and asked her to wait while they checked the status of her requests. Meanwhile, Alina gave Miyabi a questionnaire. The unfamiliar font turned out to be quite readable. Probably because he transmitted the data. The guild had 7 ranks, which changed depending on the results of request execution and contributions. An adventure map that doubled this identifier, and a bank-like tool for depositing money made carrying all funds during requests impractical. The form had rules about politeness and prohibition of fights, and at the same time, they pondered whether some adventurers lacked manners. Liz noticed that he was reading very carefully and was surprised by his diligence. Miyabi explained that his corporate experience made him meticulous. Liz said that 90% of candidates did not read this. Miyabi doubted this until a learner confirmed it, and she thanked him on behalf of the guild for his care, adding that as an acquaintance of Lizzie, he seemed reliable. Miyabi realized that the simple wording in the form indicated that a leaner had difficulties filling it out. He completed the application. But he noticed that he had signed in Japanese, and Liz did not notice the mistake and told him to indicate supporter as the position. Confused, Miyabi saw the explanation and explained that during long or escort missions, care for equipment such as weapons and armor was often complicated, so a temporary assistant was taken. Miyabi felt relieved that Liz did not notice his Japanese. He asked if she meant an adventurer acting behind the scenes. She confirmed and added that supporters still sometimes had to fight. Their duties included carrying water from streams and cooking, but he would be exempt from night watches, so it would be safer. Miyabi wondered if the support role was too simple while others fought, but Liz refuted this, saying that constant requests for help drove her to despair because escort tasks kept her in constant tension. Essentially, assistants were a guarantee of request success, mostly performed routine tasks, and when fatigue increased and people became irritable, helped avoid conflicts. Miyabi agreed to listen to her advice, registered as a supporter, and submitted applications to the party of Eleonori, Liz, and Drain from the escort mission. They parted ways there. She said a brief goodbye and left. The leaner handed Miyabi his adventure card and asked him to show the temporary pass. He took it out of his inventory and surprised her by being a producer. He asked if producers rarely join as adventurers, and she approved his decision, adding that most producers choose registration in trade or manufacturing guilds. She said that although some producers took risks, they often lacked endurance and their projects were rejected, while Miyabi remained calm, assuming that few producers share his passionate enthusiasm. She said that recently manufacturing guilds began encouraging cooperation with adventurers and wished him success, adding that time does not pass in the inventory, so storing demon meat or rare parts can increase their value, and advised him to remember this when collecting items. He promised to carefully gather various materials. He also aimed to quickly repay the debt to Liz. Whatever he did, the first step was to collect materials, and gathering them during orders would be much more efficient, so he preferred the Adventurers Guild over the manufacturing one due to the risk of conflict of interest. He asked about safe places outside the city for gathering, and she advised the east as the safest. In the next chapter, Miyabi left the Ventures Guild and found himself confused. He could not find his home because the buildings in the city look very similar. Wherever he looked, the landscape seemed the same. For a Japanese man like him, this was especially confusing, and so, having previously relied on Liz, he could not even remember the name of that area. When the sun began to set, he thought that Lisa was probably worried about him. Suddenly, he saw a girl with ears like an animal carrying a sword and realized that this was an adventure. There was no one nearby, so he asked her to show the way to his hotel. She indicated the direction, but he remained confused. He did not specify what he meant by inzelcation, and she might have meant her own. She was surprised by his request. He thought he had addressed the wrong person. Having no other choice, he apologized for possibly scaring her, showed his traveler's card, and explained that he was lost and didn't remember where the tavern where he had booked a room was, asked her for help, and she, after looking at his card, showed hers. Checking her card, he saw that she was a startup with a B rating. He was surprised that such a sweet young girl lasted longer than Liz. She pointed at him, called him a lost traveler, and introduced herself as Mel, offering to help. Her unusual manner of speaking did not bother him, and he thanked her. She asked him to point out where the tavern was. He recalled it was near the eastern gate, but admitted that another adventurer distracted him, and he forgot the details, so Mel seriously inquired whether that adventurer was a girl. He confirmed that she was about his age, and Mel said the answer was in a certain direction, and decided to lead him there, after which she quickly brought him straight to the hotel where he was staying, surprising Miyabi. She explained that everything is simple if you think a little. This place near the eastern gate was the only one where girls were safe because alcohol was prohibited there, so it was suitable for small, risky affairs. Miyabi understood that Liz chose this place considering its safety and thanked Mel, who encouraged him to keep trying hard. To express gratitude, Miyabi decided to give her a gift. He wanted to pay her with coins, but he had no money, so he decided to do something to please her. He only had wood collected in the forest, so he chose a piece to work on. He activated the matter decomposition skill. The inventory expansion function allowed automatic disassembly of materials stored in it. He took a wooden block and began shaping it with the necessary magic. He carved a cute animal figure from the block. Mel's cheeks blushed. She looked at it and happily accepted his gift. It reminded him of exchanges in Sakai. No matter how often he did such things, they had value for him. In Sakai, such creations were only data, so seeing someone appreciate his gift warmed his heart. That night, due to the cold, he could not sleep because there was no stove or heater in the room. To warm up, he went to have breakfast and met Liz. They went into the dining hall, talking about the cold weather. He told her to sit while he went to get something to eat, returning with hot soup and bread. He accidentally touched Liz's hands, which were icy. Liz said that she has poor blood circulation. She noticed that it was still better than wounds during squirt missions. She was grateful that she immediately had hot food and did not have to fight the cold wind. During tasks, she often could not rest due to frozen hands and feet, and this helped Miyabi understand why she values the assistant's help. He thought she would like it if he carried extra blankets. She willingly pays a silver coin every day to have priority access to one. He worried that others might think he was asking too much from her. Liz retorted that he would not say that after a rainy morning. She asked whether he would prefer a story about the heat beating down on the earth or about resting on hard, relentless ground. Hearing this, Miyabi advised temporarily suspending splash missions. After breakfast, they went to the guild to choose their first joint task from the board. They asked to organize the Adventurers Guild by ranks, and while they were reviewing rank C and D options, Miyabi noticed that Eleonora was posting things on the board, and as soon as she stepped away, the adventurers began to argue. Liz explained that they were competing for the highest-paying tasks of rank E and F. Miyabi realized that as the only adventurer, he would have to join this chaos. So he decided to stay with Liz. Liz was upset that the request papers were in disarray, although they were hung up to help those in need, and she neatly arranged them on the board. Miyabi was impressed by her care. He asked which request she would choose, and while they were reviewing options, she made a choice just as an irritated man noticed them. Miyabi inquired about the details of the request, and Liz said it was about destroying land sheep. Despite the casual name, the rewards for this had recently increased, and Miyabi doubted whether it was realistic, but Liz reassured him because she had defeated them before, although she warned that it might take several days. Standing in line, Liz stopped in a more crowded queue, although there was a less busy one nearby, and said she preferred this queue. Miyabi saw how Ellen Raddick responded, and teased that Liz was a fan. Embarrassed, Liz made a remark to him. She suggested that a beautiful person should accompany him, but Miyabi thought it sounded like the wish of an old man. Liz objected and said it was like her younger sister being accompanied by her perfect older sister. To Miyabi, such a comparison seemed even stranger, and when their turn came, Alina was glad to see Liz and Miyabi start participating in the party activities. But her expression spoiled when she saw the request for ground lamb. Liz admitted that it would take a lot of time and temporarily distance her from the guild. Alina warned them about an attack by a ram of ground sheep. The rewards for hiring in the request come from level C projects that recently failed. She insisted that Miyabi try hard but not overexert himself. She wished them both good luck. Miyabi now understood Liz's comment because Alina's kind words and smile lifted his spirits and touched his simple nature. Liz noticed the artificial bobbing in Alina's running, although he had previously criticized her enthusiasm. She joked that he clearly had the mindset of an old man. She was right because he was in his 30s. On the Western Plains, Liz and Miyabi stopped to rest. Liz was impressed by his endurance, which was unusual for a producer. They had come on foot from Angela, but he showed no signs of fatigue, and Liz, who loved adventures, found this strange. Miyabi explained that the reason for his tirelessness was in the equipment, not in personal endurance. His equipment had bonuses to endurance and fatigue reduction tools made for producers who work long hours. Liz found this impressive because Mage equipment does not provide such advantages as that of Vanguard's, and endurance is harder to maintain. Liz did not dare to ask for a break because she did not want to bother her companions, but sometimes she overstrained herself and was a little envious of Miyabi's endurance. He said that breaks were necessary for safety, but Liz did not dare to mention her fatigue because she was the only one tired, and she understood why others hurried home. The city gates closed at dusk, so those who arrived later had to camp in the wilderness. It reminded her of a salesman who, after overtime work, missed the last train and now had to walk home. Miyabi had experienced this too, and compared to that world, he considered himself lucky to be here now. Yes, this world had inconveniences, but he was not bothered by annoying customer complaints. No despotic boss piled work on him, and his partner was kind. His mental state had greatly improved, and this was the peace that modern people so longed for. While he was lost in thought, Liz shouted his name and warned him not to sit down because she saw a sheep on the ground. They looked into the bushes. They saw what Miyabi had mistaken for a deer. Liz explained that it was indeed a deer, but the real sheep was further behind and hiding behind the deer. They see a huge sheep on the ground, known as demons who brought vanguards to their knees. She heard that even a dozen soldiers could not defeat one. There was even a legend that one broke the castle gates with its horn. The problem was their sharp intellect. Liz explained that they, along with others, would go around as they had just seen, and some said they deliberately attacked mages from behind, sneaking through the underbrush. Liz noticed that usually they attacked from afar when they were alone, because such beasts roamed freely. This explained why the roads were impassable. Miyabi was sure that no one would survive a direct hit from their charge. He asked if anyone besides adventurers had been harmed, and she replied that there had been no such reports so far. The roadblock still seemed strange to her. Liz noted that a small village further down the road depended on her for supplies and had barely survived since the demon appeared. This made their mission vital for the villagers. Even as an assistant, Miyabi had to remain vigilant and focused. Miyabi assured her that he would not be a burden. He then inquired if there were any other key details. Liz insisted that their advance must be avoided at all costs, as she noticed he was taking it lightly. She sternly warned not to underestimate them and said to continue the advance unless critically wounded, noting that it was as dangerous as a level B mission, and Miyabi understood that without a fatal injury, their impulse was unstoppable. Liz looked embarrassed by his comment. He said that sheep on the ground are easily subjected to sudden attacks. Having crafted a stone shovel, he suggested digging a pit trap. Liz replied that demons are not so naive, and if pits were so effective, everyone would dig them, and besides, they did not have time to dig a large pit. Hashi claimed that Miyabi created a huge hole in just a second, and she was stunned. He acknowledged her arguments, but said they did not take into account the special skills of her followers. He expressed confidence in his ability to build a successful hunting pit. Liz could not believe what she saw, and jokingly suggested that he was a mole in a past life. Miyabi smiled at. He quickly set about finishing the traps. He covered the pit with large sheets of plywood and piled earth on top. He scattered meadow grass on top and warned that without mixing, the growth pattern would look unnatural. They used magic and smoothly blended the covering. He completed a safe and reliable reverse donut trap. Liz was surprised that he managed it in less than 10 minutes. It was so realistic that she doubted whether this trap even existed now that it was set. Liz was not sure what to do next. Miyabi asked if the earth sheep were aggressive enough to attack if they sensed them. He suggested Liz use magic to provoke them. She was shocked by his proposal to hunt such beasts and act as bait against the earth sheep, which seemed completely crazy, but seeing his faith in their chances, Liz reluctantly believed him. Although the plan seemed too risky, she used the stone ball spell to attract their attention. And it worked immediately. The sheep looked at them so fearfully that both were gripped by panic. Liz's fear sharply surged when one of them rushed straight at them. Miyabi tried to calm her down. But his words had no effect when the sheep surrounded him. Liz's confidence in the plan vanished. She was sure they would have to face this directly. Liz instinctively grabbed his hand when a grazing sheep bleated. Despite her fears, this sheep had just stepped on the trap and fallen into the pit. Liz was surprised she hadn't noticed the pit, while the other sheep seemed to have noticed the trap. This made Liz think that she would have to fight them directly. She was caught off guard again. The sheep began falling into the pit as they charged at them. Liz was stunned and couldn't imagine the plan working so effectively. Miyabi explained how pit traps worked, as if he himself knew nothing. He described it as a simple construction, but the deeper the pit, the more serious the consequences of falling. It made anyone who fell unable to fight. Despite his explanation, Liz found it hard to believe they had defeated so many sheep so easily. She felt insecure because of Miyabi's incredible ability. Miyabi acted childishly when Liz said they needed to have a serious talk later. He mistakenly thought she was going to confess her feelings, so she explained that it was about the trap. She said she first finished the sheet, and then he would have to tell everything he knew about the trap. Liz began to cast a spell and watched how her powerful enchantment worked. Miyagi suggested a weaker option because the sheep were already wounded. She explained that she couldn't because the land sheep were resilient, and her goal was to kill them with one blow to preserve the quality of the material. For this, a charged magical spell that provided maximum power was best suited. She threw an accurate spear and destroyed them all with one strike. After the battle, Liz was still surprised that it didn't take long or exhausting to defeat a sheep. Miyabi noted that craftsmanship could be used to her advantage. Liz saw how he put a whole sheep lying on the ground into his inventory. He did not understand her surprise because he believed that support should carry killed monsters. Liz agreed but did not understand what kind of inventory could hold bedding and the earth they had dug up, and Miyabi was confused and thought that inventory was just inventory. She understood but spoke about the capacity of his inventory and interrupted her explanation halfway because he would not understand it. Liz decided to gather the sheep and rest. During the break, she savored her warm bread. Miyabi was glad to see that she liked it. He kept it in the inventory because they were in the city. Liz asked again how much his inventory could hold. He replied that he probably used only 1% of it. She did not understand this and wanted to move on, so he, irritated, explained that the inventory capacity increases with skill level, and Liz, embarrassed, asked what that meant. Miyabi did not realize that in this world there were no skill levels. He explained that by using crafting skills, his inventory would expand, and daily gathering would naturally increase the capacity in Yuma Sakai. At Yumi Sakai's, this would have improved gathering skills and eventually turned him into a walking warehouse. Such skills were common among dedicated craftsmen. He thought that everyone here aimed to fill the storage as much as possible and wanted to know if the method differed from the game. Liz seemed thoughtful. When he asked, she explained that it was about her attitude towards craftsmen and apologized if she offended him. Blacksmiths and seamstresses were respected, while craftsmen did everything but of worse quality. Usually, they made cheap furniture or repaired walls, and they were paid little. She said that craftsmanship was one of the less profitable production roles. She did not know Miyabi's past, so she assumed that he could not go outside without accompaniment. Wolves and goblins threatened peaceful people, and even if he paid for protection, his inventory would quickly fill with material supplies, which were not free for most craftsmen. Daily gathering was very difficult. Miyabi did not know what to say. Their life experiences were completely different. For Yumi Sakai, gathering materials was simple, only needing to avoid areas with many demons, while craftsmen of this world could not freely gather materials and were limited to repairing walls and furniture. There was no way to increase skill levels, and he felt sorry for them. But he could not solve this because he was busy himself. Miyabi finally said that earning money was hard in any job. Recalling her cold escort missions, Liz nodded and added that adventures had a high mortality rate and only a few managed to gain wealth and fame. He changed the subject to avoid further awkwardness, mentioned the request about ground sheep, and she asked what it was about. He said that he really wanted their wool. She replied that he could take whatever he wanted. The guild usually sold only the main parts, and the wool was discarded. Miyabi thanked Liz. He began sorting through the materials from the earth sheep in the inventory. Liz said she never thought they would bring a whole earth sheep. Its parts could be used in medicine. The claws and bones were suitable for making weapons and armor, and the meat was edible. This haul could bring them record profits. She began fantasizing about allowing herself luxury at the beginning of the year and moving to a hotel with hot springs. Miyabi Chinden said that a real bath would be wonderful because he only washed with a bucket of hot water. Liz noticed that having hot water was already a luxury. Her mood changed sharply, and she said that she would not allow him to disband their party yet. Even if he returned her loan, she insisted that their partnership would continue. Miyabi was glad because he valued his ability to handle demonic materials that would help better complete their stay, and he wanted her to be less harsh, but also hoped that their group would last. Especially because he did not want to clean up the consequences of this trap. He shook her hand and said he looked forward to their further cooperation. Liz apologized for her careless words, but since they thought alike, everything was fine. Returning from the errand, Alina was surprised that they returned so quickly, asked if they had already completed it, and Liz replied that the sheep acted on their own. Miyabi whispered, asking why they did not tell the whole truth, and Liz preserved her pride as a traveler. Helena was initially puzzled, but relieved to see that both of them were unharmed. She asked them to submit the materials as proof of completion. Liz did not know that Miyabi had butchered the sheep, so she suggested using the room for butchering. But he said that he had already processed them and began taking materials out of his inventory in front of Eleonora. She noticed 3 sets of claws and huns, as well as the meat of 2 sheep. This surprised even the neighboring adventurers, and Miyabi apologized that the materials had overflowed the tray and asked if he should take them somewhere else. Helen smiled and assured him that everything was fine. She said they would immediately process the materials and assess their value. At that moment, a group of people entered the guild. The newcomers were stunned by the pile of meat on the counter and began excitedly talking about the haul. Seeing their reactions, Miyabi asked if the meat on the list was popular. Liz explained that it was lean, healthy meat with a mild flavor. It was liked even by women. It was delivered within 3 hours after slaughter, so it was very fresh. The guild froze it to eat raw, so it became a delicacy for devoted fans. Miyabi recalled what Liz had said earlier and guessed that she liked ground sheep too. She explained that she would not eat it raw. Eleonora returned to give them 45 gold coins as a reward for the request, plus 60 gold for well-preserved Hans and Klaus. Hans and Klaus bring 10 gold coins. The Alamet was valued at 85 gold coins. In total, 200 gold coins. Miyabi suggested taking 30% for the role of porter, but Liz insisted that he deserved 70% for his efforts. Miyabi refused, saying that accepting 70% would ruin his integrity. Liz scolded him, demanded that he return the loan tenfold, asked him not to be ashamed, and warned that if he agreed, it would be like admitting to being a mole, and Eleonora Curios inquired about this remark about the mole, and they tried to behave calmly even on the street. They could not agree on the distribution of money, because Liz believed that Miyabi did most of the work, and Miyabi replied that it did not matter because he was only an assistant. Her risk of injury was higher, so she deserved more, and he would still repay his debt. Liz valued his reasoning but said that it seemed to her that he was already overpaying. She asked how to divide the reward, and he proposed 6-4, but she did not agree and said he should take less, so she suggested a 5-5 split. Although he doubted that, as a supporter, he deserved even half. Liz did not let him refuse, saying it was all right because they additionally earned from the sheep on the land. Miyabi and Liz immediately moved to the hot spring inn. He miscalculated the living expenses, and the transition from simple back to luxury hit his wallet. Still, he liked seeing people with familiar, friendly behavior. Liz insisted that he try the hot spring. But he first wanted to go shopping. Liz, a little surprised, told him to warm up and not to worry about her. They parted ways. Liz went to the hot spring, and Miyabi went in the other direction. Big requests like yesterday's probably happened rarely. He understood that taking risks was not easy, and this emphasized the need to quickly organize his life. Thinking about food, he knew there were periods without requests, so he needed to prepare while he had money, because if the situation dragged on, providing enough food would become vital. Miyabi wouldn't even take the sweet spicy sauce. Simple salt would be enough for him. He stopped by a kiosk and decided to buy all the available spices. The seller thought he was just looking, but when Miyabi showed 10 gold coins, the seller quickly changed his mind. Then he went into the spice shop and took salt and pepper. Finally, he visited the hardware store to buy the rest of the necessities. After so many purchases, he had only 49 gold coins left, but he convinced himself that the expenses were worth it. Now it was time to take care of their other needs. He entered the smithy and began to look around. Impressed by the skill, it was clearly the work of a true expert. The stone axe he made was no match for the well-made knives from the shop. He realized that his craft skills could not compare to professional weaponsmithing. A man approached them and asked if Miyabi was the maker. Miyabi was surprised and did not understand how the man could determine that he was a producer, and the man said to look at how weapons are perceived as tools. They are evaluated by weight and how they are used, and only weapon fans or producers look at them with such a broad smile. Miyabi did not even notice that he was smiling until the man pointed it out. He apologized. But the man waved it off, saying there was no need. He admitted that he inspects the weapons of other blacksmiths, and it was customary for craftsmen. Miyabi thanked him and said that she needed a knife for self-defense. He also asked if the man could sell him some iron items. The man first asked his name. Miyabi introduced himself as a fan. The man named Weiss said that he was the third-generation owner of this forge. He did not know that craftsmen were now making weapons and approved of it. Weiss asked Miyabi to show him the weapon he had created. Miyabi was shocked and realized that Weiss had misunderstood his intentions. He only wanted simple kitchen equipment, like a stove for cooking jingashiken, but this was not the moment to talk about it. He suddenly showed his stone axe while Weiss was inspecting it. Miyabi hoped it would not be too crude to be rejected, but why did it command him to follow? Weiss led him to a room full of iron ore. Yabai was stunned by how much ore lay before him. He said he had never seen so many piles, even in the virtual world of the game. Weiss prepared a large box of iron ore and said that he shared similar amounts with beginner blacksmiths. When Miyabi asked about the cost, Weiss smiled and said that no one charges those who make a stone axe, and he knew that Miyabi, as a traveler and craftsman, had little money. Miyabi wanted to save money, but he felt awkward taking it for free, so he insisted on paying. Weiss persuaded him to take it. He added that if Miyabi forged a weapon from this ore, he should return and show it, because Weiss wanted to see the result. Meanwhile, Miyabi kept thinking about Jingyushu-kun, which he planned to prepare. He promised to make something so impressive to show Weiss without shame. He admitted that it might take some time. When he was leaving, Weiss thought about the stone axe. When cutting down trees, it often scraped, so he was surprised that someone made it with a stone axe, and in his later years he now had something to look forward to. Meanwhile, Miyagi got lost again, but at least remembered the name of the end. He went further. Suddenly Mel appeared, and Miyagi cried with relief upon seeing her, because he was lost again. He asked her to guide him once more. Nell pointed to the tavern, but he explained that he had moved to a place called Ferrata. She said that she had also stayed there and was returning. They walked together, and Miyagi reached the end safely with relief. He thanked Mel again for her help and shook her hand. He noticed that she seemed to be expecting something more. Realizing that now he could repay her with his new crafting materials, he decided to create something special. He breathed magic into the form and carefully cut the material as he wanted. Hand sewing was boring, but his skill allowed him to embed magic into the thread. Leading the thread along a magical path to the places you wanted to sew, it followed that path. And in a few minutes, he made a cute plush toy. Miyagi had the final touch, a technique unique to craftsmen. He covered the surface with magic, using crushed sheep's wool to immediately create a fluffy layer. After finishing touches, the soft toy was ready. He did not notice the crowd of people who gathered, asked questions, and praised his work. He apologized to Mel for the delay and thanked her for helping him bring the matter to completion. She blushed and thanked him for calling her by her name for the first time. Yabai was surprised that Nell remembered his name. He hoped the plush toy would remind her of him and was glad she liked it too. Liz, who had just come out of the bath, greeted him and asked if she had missed anything. Miyabi pretended not to understand the craft. She changed the subject by asking about the sheep, and all the time while he was away, she bathed in the hot springs. She said she had been there 3 times because the springs were wonderful. Her relaxation made his heart beat a little faster than usual, and Liz insisted that he try the springs. But Miyabi, who blushed, was distracted by looking more mature, and Liz, shocked by his cheeks, noticed they were cold and advised him to take care of himself as a traveler. Miyabi refocused. Liz asked in surprise what had happened, and he admitted that he was blaming himself for distracting thoughts. When he noticed the age difference, he felt embarrassed. He decided to go to the hot spring to clear his mind. In the next chapter, Miyabi and Liz find themselves in a paradise for wood. An hour before that, Liz told Miyabi that today's requests were not the best because the rain had worsened the soil condition, and many of them had become unattractive. The trip there and back was the best option because she wanted to avoid spending the night in the mud while they sorted out the papers with requests that others had scattered. Name the proposed materials for gathering that interested Miyabi. She was surprised by his enthusiasm, but he excused himself, saying that no craftsman could remain calm when it came to gathering. The forest of various tree species was incredible. It was strange that trees with different growth needs grew so closely together, and when he crafted, he felt the unique color, shine, and texture of each tree. The more he talked about the trees, the more anxious Liz became. She told him to take only what was needed and to cut trees only in this area. She said that falling trees could attract demons. As she spoke, the tree that Miyabi had cut disappeared. Making her think she had dozed off, Miyabi explained that his gathering skill had simply activated. Liz laughed and insisted that a tree could not enter his inventory without falling, because she was convinced it was a dream, but Miyabi repeated the trick and proved it was real. She decided to let it go for now, realizing it would be risky if she did not remain vigilant. Miyabi worked until his stone axe broke, because the durability of an item depends on the material, and it breaks when it reaches 0. He wanted to make an iron axe, but iron ore was valuable here. Liz said they would move as soon as he finished with that tree. Interested, Miyabi asked why. She explained that many demons lived in the forest and excessive logging could disrupt the ecosystem. There was a rule that when cutting a large number of trees, they had to be gradually harvested in different forests. Miyabi understood that one cannot gather thoughtlessly, as in a game. Liz said that this rule applies to large-scale deforestation by countries, and for a person like Miyabi, it rarely causes concern. Noticing his concern and daring, Liz suddenly stopped him and listened intently to the sound. Pressed behind the bushes and using magic killed a large animal. Miyabi thought it was a huge wolf, but Liz said it was smaller. He was surprised that she sensed the approach, although he noticed nothing. Liz explained that windy days cause sounds to blend with the rustling of leaves. This made detection easier. Miyabi tried to listen but could not. She said it comes with experience, and pointed to another wolf nearby. Liz asked him to put the wolf in the inventory to earn. He agreed, and they moved on. After some time, Liz suggested a break, but Miyabi did not want to sit on the damp ground. Liz admitted that the soil was still wet, but suggested sitting on the root and having lunch. When they talked about lunch, Miyabi brightened up and told Liz that she could count on him. He felled trees, leveled the ground, and built an entire pergola. Liz was shocked. He said that building a luxurious gazebo in the wild forest was excessive. Miyabi was confused, so she asked him to think again. He realized that a blanket would help against the cold. Liz was still disappointed. It turned out that the issue was not his skill. She was simply impressed by the potential of the craft. Liz reluctantly admitted that sitting on a cushion was comfortable, and it was also warm. Miyabi's arrangement was so cozy that Liz was worried she might not notice demons. Miyabi told her to stay vigilant because he did not want demons to interrupt their lunch. While Liz was resting, Miyabi decided to quickly prepare food because lingering too long would be dangerous. Miyabi made a stove and wrote a note asking to light a fire, but she blissfully rested wrapped in a warm blanket. He decided to light the fire himself. He infused the fire with charms, pouring magic into the materials through a magical circuit to give them properties, but incompatibility of the materials with these properties could cause problems. Too strong a fire can dangerously overheat the wood. He applied this technique to weapons in Yun-Sakai with some success, but here it was impossible, so he had to stand by the stove and start crafting. It's time to prepare Jingu Suken. He placed Jingu Suken, black tea, and note bread on the table. Liz decided to stop overthinking and just focus on the food. The food was wonderful. The minced lamb was tender, without any smell. A little salt enhanced the flavor, and even combined with vegetables it remained rich. Miyabi had never tasted such exceptional meat. The bread also stood out. The sweetness of the milk was pleasant, and the bread was very fluffy. Miyabi baked the bread himself. Liz asked him to make more next time because it was better than store-bought. She said she would buy additional spices. Miyabi grind showed the sauces he bought, and they continued eating and stayed in the forest until sunset. They spent most of the day together. Liz noticed that Miyabi seemed happy the whole time. He agreed and said he had a great time. He credited her for that. He had fun because he couldn't sense demons himself and didn't know the logging rules, and such an experienced adventurer as Liz was invaluable. Miyabi said he had always imagined a life where he crafts, gathers, and enjoys good food. He asked if Liz had a dream. She hesitated. She was afraid he would mock her, but he promised not to. She said that her goal was to become an A-rank adventurer, create unique magic, and use it to help many people. Miyabi considered her dream inspiring and believed she could achieve it because she remembered the help from that day. Liz doubted herself because the rank status seemed distant. She could only use mid-level magic. Some spells were difficult for her, and for a magician like her, reaching rank A seemed almost impossible. She paused and said that adventures require talent, which, in her opinion, she lacks. Miyabi, full of confidence, insisted that she could achieve rank A. He pointed to the dirty adventures ahead, which had traveled a long way through requests. They fought the demon in the swampy forest. Their feet got stuck and mud splattered around. It was an exhausting battle. Even the archer, who was supposed to stay behind, had dirty hair. They defeated the demon, and although the curfew was approaching, they had time to wash and dry their hair. They discussed how to carry the equipment and wash it in the river near the city. If they stayed nearby, they could return quickly, even if the clothes remained wet. Liz smiled. They said that no one would have done that. Miyabi admitted that he made it up. The request was successful. But failure could mean something worse than injury. Meanwhile, some adventurers skipped the request due to weather and group condition. He asked who among the adventurers was more reliable, for example Liz, who lent money to those in need. He called her average level of magic a reason to give up the dream. Liz, a bit shy, explained that she never said she would quit. Coordinated strength is not everything. Liz asked him to wait and approach future dirty adventures. In the next scene, Miyabi was preparing a fish dinner. Preparing grilled trout and fish in a salt crust, Liz was surprised when, upon request, they served her freshly fried fish. During travels, they usually eat simple food because cooking smells can attract demons. Miyabi cooked a new exquisite dish every day. Liz felt that at this pace she would never return to her old life. As Miyabi said, she did not need that. After another request, Aliner thanked them for their efforts and noted how well they worked as a team. Can I be credited as the author of Liz's choice? But she replied that Miyabi's carrying capacity was key. Aliner noticed that Liz smiled more often. Miyabi said she would always smile, although now she often scolded him. Aliner guessed it was because Liz cared about him. Liz blush and Aliner pause. At first, Miyabei thought Liz was only fascinated by Eleonora, but then he realized that Eleonora was also watching her. Calling Liz's care for him concern was not quite accurate. Eleanor then noted that Miyabi had recently been very focused on collecting similar requests and advised him to try other types soon. Her words made Miyabi realize that Liz was not pursuing her own goals. This meant that she still cared about his safety. He understood that long-term requests were dangerous when protecting a supporter, and Liz was very careful to keep him unharmed. Now, knowing her aspirations, he wanted to help her achieve them. He did not want to disturb Liz's dream at all. She asked what he planned to do next. Since they had free time, Miyabi thought it was worth practicing spells. Liz said that she might start studying magic. He advised her to rest, but she refused. They began jokingly teasing each other, pretending to quarrel, but both laughed. Miyabi went to work on his spell because it was difficult for him. Enchanting was a complex system, and without key material or when using incompatible properties, it was difficult to apply. If the properties are compatible, magic flows easily, but in conflict, even touching the contour walls causes a magic leak that can damage the material. Precise control of magic is very important but difficult. Sometimes he deliberately did not use heat as before, but today that was not his goal. He focused and moved cautiously. He tried to reach the core of the material, using as little magic as possible. His persistence paid off, and he crafted a small thermoblock. These blocks were for Liz to warm her room without a heater, but they wouldn't help outside, so he was not entirely satisfied. He decided to make a wearable item that wouldn't interfere during travel, and adding it to spare shirts seemed the best option. He wanted to share, approached Liz, and asked for one of her spare shirts to test the spell, but Liz misunderstood him and sharply scolded him because Miyabi didn't know that asking for a girl's spare shirt was inappropriate. He bent over in shame and thought long about the mistake. Borrowing it was impossible, and the fact that it wasn't underwear made the situation even stranger, while the robe or main gear were already used for heating. The guard announced that the city gates were closing, and he entered. Usually he got lost, but now he had a map, so he wouldn't make that mistake again. He ran into Mel again. She quickly pointed the way to the tavern, but he explained that he wasn't lost today, and Mel looked disappointed because she hoped to give him another one of her creations as a reward. He made her a small bird figurine. Miyabi asked where she was going so late, and she replied that she needed to repair some damaged weapons. Although it was far from a trifle, her sword was almost broken, even beyond the skills of Modi's enchantant. In exchange for repairing the sword, he asked to join, and she agreed. In Weiss's workshop, his reaction to Mel's sword surprised Miyabi, because Mel always postponed repairs until the weapon was almost completely ruined. Then Weiss noticed Miyabi, said that he had not yet ordered the making of his weapon, but came to look at the repair, and asked if they knew each other, to which Miyabi answered affirmatively. After Weiss reprimanded Mel, he said he had many repair orders, so it might take time. He asked if Miyabi could at least handle the synthesis of materials, and Miyabi realized that Weiss wanted him to do the repair himself, which shocked him. He could not refuse because a failed synthesis could ruin the materials. He noticed that Null's sword was made of high-quality materials and did not want to cause her trouble. Weiss said that such repair opportunities were rare, and manipulating magic was a craftsman's strong suit. This was true, but Miyabi was still hesitant. To calm his nerves, Weiss said that Mel could afford to replace things despite her habit of breaking them and disliking delays. Miyabi, relieved, asked Mel if she agreed and asked what he wanted. They recalled that the material was Dragon's Fang, a valuable item with a high market price, and Weiss and Nell encouraged him as he prepared. He noticed that the process was similar to sorcery, so he focused. He opened and connected the chain. Now he had to direct magic to the damaged spot. But unlike enchantment, he had to control the magic of the materials, which made the task more difficult. Miyabi was so nervous that he forgot to breathe, but thought everything would be fine as long as he could speak, and Weiss offered to share some dragon fangs if he succeeded with one. Weiss's encouragement worked, and Miyabi immediately resumed the repair work. The repair process lasted until midnight. When Miyabi finished, Weiss inspected the sword and asked if he could repeat the task later. Miyabi did not believe that Weiss was offering to do it again, considering how exhausted Weiss was. The task turned out to be 100 times harder than Weiss expected. Weiss explained that repairing high-quality items is usually not the craftsman's task. Miyabi was surprised because Weiss seemed to contradict his previous words. As an apology, Weiss offered him 2 dragon fangs. Miyabi hesitated to accept because he had broken one due to overconfidence during the repair. Weiss explained that usually 4 dragon fangs are needed for such a sword repair. So Miyad worked very efficiently. Reluctantly, Miyabi accepted the dragon fangs and headed to his tavern. After riding horseback, he fell onto the cot, and Liz thought with surprise that he was too tense because of spell practice. The next morning, he woke up numb because he accidentally dozed off in the vestibule. They visited the guild. Liz chose another task to gather resources. Miyabi wanted variety and suggested taking an investigation request in the Jade Forest. Liz looked worried. She noticed that investigation requests could change the positions of other requests and that she had never done this before, so she decided it was too early for them because demons would likely appear. Miyabi noticed that she hesitated because she was worried about him. Liz admitted that although their fight on the ground went well, she was worried that she would not be able to protect him if something went wrong, and at that moment she doubted her ability to keep him safe. She admitted that with his skill in harvesting they earned well, and that was true. But Miyabi reminded her that to become an A-rank adventurer, one must have diverse experience. They did not need to fight demons or fully explore the forest, and they could hide underground if they wounded the rose. Liz was surprised by the idea of hiding underground. He jokingly said that in a past life he was a mole and convinced her to agree to take on this assignment. Miyabi was prepared for difficulties in the first investigation, but trusted Liz's leadership. At the counter, Guild Aliner asked if this was Liz's first request for an investigation, and Liz replied that she wanted to try something different. Aliner was sure they had succeeded, but warned them to be vigilant during the investigation and to retreat if they felt danger. Liz asked if everything was all right, and Alinora said that the other adventurers sent to the Jade Forest had not returned. Miyabi pondered Leonard's warning. Her words made him especially cautious, but the forest turned out to be calmer than expected. They searched for half a day and did not encounter a single demon. Liz found it strange that Jade Forest and Worth, east of Angela, were so quiet. In the forest, there was a living, rich ecosystem, usually teeming with demons here. It was a valuable source of medicinal herbs that attracted many adventurers, but when people began to disappear, access was restricted. Demons were natural enemies of humans, just as humans were enemies of demons, and Liz asked Miyabi what would happen if humans stopped coming. He said it would benefit the demons and likely increase their numbers. Demons spread quickly, and some moved from other forests. Usually their number would have grown, but they still filed a request for an investigation. A pack of wolves from the Emerald Forest appeared on the northern steppe of Kilian. It was necessary to check for possible ecosystem violations in the forest, inspect the site, and prepare a report on the findings. It was truly a strange situation. Liz said they need many samples to find possible problems, and asked Miyabi to collect animal droppings from the ground. Miyabi was Paul, who asked for a little attention, and Liz Grind reminded him that he supports her aspiration to reach A rank. That night they spent the night at a local tavern for 5 silver coins. Miyabi was exhausted after the daytime investigation. The wood samples they took revealed nothing unusual. They only saw small animals. There were a few strange details, but no obvious clues were found. He was ready for long work, but it seemed it would take even more time. Even after finishing, he would have to write a report. He is thinking about it. He realized he did not know how to report. They could not just submit materials as evidence. He was only collecting samples and recording nothing. He lowered his guard because Liz gave no instructions, but he did not blame her, as they were both novices in investigations, so mistakes were inevitable. The sun had just set, so he gathered paper, pencil, and Liz's map, turned demon bones into glue, and combining it with wood made paper, made a pencil from charcoal and wood, and at the same time created colored pencils by dyeing them with flower dye. Miyabi, through experience from his previous life, easily handled paperwork and overtime shifts. And surprisingly, it no longer bothered him. He never thought he would have to use skills from his previous life in this new world. Even in the adventurer's craft, he had to solve many tasks during travels. In the morning, he handed Liz a summary of yesterday's investigation and explained that records are needed for accurate reports later. Liz was worried that preparation took him a lot of time. But Miyabi assured her that he would rest well because he went to bed before midnight. After reviewing the summary, Liz decided from that day to help him with it. Miyabi, thinking that she was exhausted from reconnaissance and other tasks, offered to handle them alone, but Liz insisted that it was better to share the work. Liz expressed a desire to learn how to make the summary book. Miyabi was surprised by Liz's diligence, but Liz explained that it was not about being diligent. She explained that adventurers usually give oral reports, and the guild keeps written ones, so she did not intend to deal with written reports. Miyabi panicked, realized that he had spent hours on something possibly unnecessary. But Liz reassured him, emphasizing how impressive his work was. The summary was clear, vivid, and showed patterns she had not noticed before, embarrassed by her praise. Miyabi showed her the pad he made so that the paper would not move while taking notes on the road. Liz was impressed by these innovations. She suggested quickly informing him of demon signs so he could briefly record them, and in the evening they would gather everything. Their goal became to prove to the guild that Liz was good at investigations. And for 5 days, they tirelessly explored the forest. After 5 days, they found a campfire and examined the surroundings for clues to find out who had lit it. Miyabi inadvertently assumed that the missing travelers could have survived and still be in the forest, but Liz was not sure. She noted that they were unlikely to leave a smoldering campfire unattended because it could cause a fire, and explained that it needed to be extinguished or buried, hinting that something unexpected might have prevented them from doing so. The decision to stay nearby. Liz watched as Miyabi crafted a shelter. He magically spread leaves from the collected logs, threw them over branches, and created a camouflaged base with a woolen cushion. Comfortable for long-term living with a view of the river. Liz admitted that she was no longer surprised by his ingenuity, although he jokingly wanted her to choose some surprise while they were on watch. On guard, Miyabi dozed off. Liz quickly woke him up. They were informed that a black hawk was approaching, a demon trickster. She suspected the trail of a monster, but did not realize it was connected to that area. Miyabi used so much magic with relief to mask their scent. Liz noticed that black hawks were not supposed to live in that forest. Prompt Miyabi to ask if their presence scared away other demons. She could not confirm this but considered it likely, explaining that black creatures and mutated species were large, social, and could form settlements. She suspected their nest was located deep in the forest. And Miyabi ordered to find him and report to the guild. In the settlement, Black Works, they saw many orcs and Liz. Those who suspected their presence were surprised at how quickly they reproduced. Liz realized that the population of Black Orc was larger than expected, and this posed a serious problem. She explained that when their numbers become sufficient, a higher species with developed intelligence will appear, which only the power of rank AA can defeat, and the very thought of meeting such a demon frightened Miyabi. They agreed to report to the guild, but Liz reminded him about the rapid reproduction cycle of demons and that favorable conditions could worsen the situation in a few days. She added that assembling a strike team would take at least 3 days, emphasizing the urgency of their discovery. Liz warned that Delane might arrive too late and confessed to Miyabi that she might have put him at risk, and Miyabi was confident that they could do something. When he asked Liz if they had other options, she suggested a way out. In his report, Miyabi noted that he had a basic understanding of the cave's structure and believed that his approach would succeed. He was confident that the Black Orcs would not expect such tactics. Then he drew a map of the underground settlement Blackwork. Liz, who was cold, remarked that Miyabi made it quickly, considering the large underground area. Miyabi admitted that he did not expect such cold. Liz said they would have to hold out until morning and asked Miyabi for blankets. Noticing the craftsman, Liz wondered if Miyabi planned to stay overnight in such conditions. He asked her to observe while he arranged a cozy corner. Miyabi started with the foundation, installed smoothly curved beams and columns, and used a lot of wood for the walls and ceiling. Within Shandon magic, he placed a glowing tree in the center of the huge underground space. He explained that the tree would illuminate the room with a warm glow. For Liz, who easily gets cold, he provided additional warmth. They completed a cozy, dreamlike underground house with a guest room featuring a soft double bed and a private corner for tranquility. The glowing tree made from a whole log gave soft indirect light, brightly illuminating the room. In the living room, heating blocks were stacked like firewood to imitate a fireplace. Underground, they warmed people with poor circulation without open fire. There was also a dining area and a water bowl. The dining area had chairs and a round wooden table that retained heat even underground, and the bowl allowed washing hands and easily changing water. Miyabi was confident that his creation would surprise Liz, who was gradually getting acquainted with his works. And it seemed incredible to her when he showed it. Liz was surprised that he built it so quickly. Miyabi was disappointed that she did not show more admiration for the glowing tree, despite how much he used charm magic. Liz realized that he was warming the floor without a hot source, so her hands and feet became warm and relaxed, and it felt like paradise. Miyabi admitted that he secretly added fire elements to the floor. Liz was delighted. She jokingly told him not to make the place more comfortable than a top-class hotel. She completely forgot about the Black Orcs above. Lying on the warm, comfortable floor, she thought that a pillow on the floor would be enough for rest. But Miyabi said that resting there was not allowed. He showed her a soft woolen bed, which seemed amazing to her, and she felt wrapped in wool. Liz said that the sofa covered with a futon was perfect for cool weather and asked if it was expensive. But Miyabi waved it off and told her not to dramatize. She said that, being a sea project, she would not insist that her body would wake up naturally. The next morning Liz overslept a little, and Miyabi expected it. When he tried to wake her, she mumbled for Dad to give her another minute, and Miyabi got confused about whom she meant, with a shy smile. She asked to turn the alarm on again. He refused, and she went to wash up while the sun was rising. Miyabi checked if Liz was ready, and she confirmed that she was fully awake. They decided to move on, noticing that the Black Hawks were on the night shift, and a change was about to happen soon, which annoyed them. Miyabi and Liz launched an attack, surprising the Black Hawks. Liz casts the Ice Jaddle spell, but the Black Hawks retaliated. It fell into the pit along with Miyabi, who praised her efforts but advised to retreat earlier next time. Liz's strategy, Operation Mole, recognized that a direct assault was almost impossible due to the enemy's numerical superiority. Because they did not have a frontline fighter, they sought to avoid blows, but Liz needed a few seconds to charge magic, and during that time she was vulnerable. They would build more tunnels so Liz could lure enemies from afar with magic, then hide underground, and the enemies on the surface would not know where she was. In the chaos, Liz unleashed powerful magic to destroy the Black forces. Their strategy was to repeat this tactic, reduce the enemy's numbers, and then retreat. Miyabi noted that the cave had several entrances and exits and expressed concern about the possible unnoticed appearance of a higher species, so the primary task became to map the cave. It seemed the Black Orcs were just having a feast. They wanted to quickly dig an underground passage to check other exits. Liz thought this was her plan, but Miyabi's presence made everything unpredictable. Miyabi asked if they would execute the plan that night. Liz ordered him to act at dawn and explained that she had been using a scent mask for some time and lacked the mana to fight the Black Orc. She would like to cast spells endlessly. They counted how many Black Orcs they would have to face. Seeing the fifth, Liz thought that if they kept the group small, they would not attract the attention of the higher species and would be safe. Suddenly Miyabi made a block, and Liz realized that he anticipated her idea and helped them avoid the attack. Liz asked Miyabi if she could say something strange, and he encouraged her to speak. She asked if he knew that Black Orc meat was tasty. If they defeated many, they would get a lot of meat. It could be sold profitably, and some kept for themselves. This fuels Lizzie's desire to defeat them all. Miyabi was surprised that Liz wanted to destroy them all. Liz admitted that consecutively releasing several powerful ice spears was too exhausting, and regarding the 5 remaining, she doubted she would hit them all. So she asked me, Abby, to help while Blackwork asked someone else where Liz was. Liz shouted that she was already here, killing an orc, and had only 2 shots left. She was taking them out one by one. But 2 orcs, sure she wouldn't escape, chased her as she ran. Meanwhile, Miyabi Dugagal saved Liz from them. Liz asked if he kept everything in the inventory, and he confirmed yes, showing her a sword inscribed with "May God bless my beloved husband." The sword was marked with the name Theodora's. Blackwork used this, and Miyabi suspected it belonged to a missing person. Liz was both glad and sad, noticing that they could return the sword to the person who was waiting for its owner. Miyabi agreed, appreciating her point of view, and they decided to finish the survey and go home. Miyabadi believed that it was neither his nor Lisa's fault, just bad luck. He tried to brush it off as insignificant, but couldn't stop thinking about the sword's owner. He admired Lisa's clarity of thought and asked how she managed to stay focused. Lisa said that returning to the guild felt like coming home, although it took some time, and when they arrived, they greeted Eleonora. Someone felt relieved, but noted that they had exceeded the planned days. Lisa explained that they were cautious until they got used to the task. Eleonora, seeing that they were unharmed, asked for their investigation report. Miyabi summarized that Black Orcs had appeared near the forest lake. With many bones of Gwila's wolf in your purchase. He handed Eleonora their compiled notes as a report. Eleonora did not expect a written report, but found it polite. She suggested that the guild prepare their report and then review theirs. The guild was shocked that Miyabi created it alone. Miyabi explained that he dealt with data on vegetation and soil, while the demon count assessment was left to Lisa. Lisa was unsure if her contribution helped, but they assured her it did. Eleonora praised their detailed documentation and said that guild workers would have needed a month, but they managed in 10 days. One guild member noted that the report on the Black Orch settlement was ready very quickly. Miyabi and Liza said they gave it their all. While reviewing the report, Eleonora noticed To 11 Blackworks, alert, an adventurer of rank A is needed, rank B is not suitable, Miyabi counter, stating that he had already defeated them all. Guild workers were skeptical, some doubted that it was true, others said they confused another demon with black orcs, and some thought they were lying. Elinor asked Liz to explain the basics about demons, in particular what rank is needed to defeat a black orc, and Liz answered rank C. Elinor confirmed this by telling the guild workers that Liz could defeat one orc. Elinor warned that facing 11 black orcs was a completely different matter. This far exceeded the capabilities of a two-person C-rank party. The guild staff was figuring out what mistake they had made. Some were convinced that Miyabi and Liz exaggerated their claims to get extra points. Others said their impatience caused the mistake. Elinor called Miyabi. She quickly turned and answered, "Yes, sir." She ordered him to take out the meat and call all members of the Mathling team. Announcing the return of the meat prince, the team wondered what kind of meat it was this time. Elinor informed them that according to Miyabi it was blackwork meat and asked to evaluate the proof of conquest. They were confident they would receive a significant reward, all thanks to the efforts of the meat prince. Meanwhile, Miyabi overheard whispers and crowd conversations. Some gossiped that he was the legendary meat prince of the meat kingdom. Others said his inventory could hold an unlimited amount of meat, as befits a prince, and some even asked to sell them some. Elinor explained that after the incident with the sheep on the ground, the dismantling teenager called it Meat Prince. Rumors spread about a rivalry with the Cupid of the Tower of Love among recent travelers, and Miyabi, clearly upset, asked to be given another, more impressive nickname. Liz tried to cheer him up. Miyabi said that it is rare for a fan to have such a unique title, but then jokingly called him Meat Prince, and in tears shouted that even more is 100 times better than Meat Prince. The team leader of disassembly stated that as a supervisor, he was sure that every pile of meat came from black orcs. The chief inquired how Miyabi managed such clean cuts without knife scratches on the complex joints that were hard to disassemble. Elinor admitted it was truly exceptional work. Divine disassembly technique paired with otherworldly equipment. She added that Miyabi's reports were as meticulous as those in the royal chancery. She pondered aloud what kind of person Miyabi was. Elinor noticed that other employees were also talking about it, and although she remained silent about the incident with the ground sheep, she feared that this time she would not be able to hide it. The guildmaster remarked that it seemed they had another problematic case, and he wanted to talk to both of them. Elinor reported that management wanted to discuss their report in detail. Miyabi and Liz became nervous. They wondered if they had done something wrong. Liz was delighted with black or barbecue and told Miyabi that after a hard day, there is nothing better than the premium version of me, and he replied that it would be enough for him just to get paid. The meat was tasty, but his wallet was almost empty. Liz was surprised. She did not expect him to be so frugal and wanted to find out what he spends money on, so she advised him to enjoy life a little and not save all his money. Zion, the guild master, asked to meet with Miyabi and Liz, so they want to see him. He introduced himself and then directly addressed Liz, an adventurer of rank C. They wanted to discuss their investigation in the Jade Forest and quickly report, and Zion asked if they were receiving external help to fulfill the request. Miyabi got angry and felt accused of cheating. Liz firmly told Zion that it was just the two of them. They emphasized that Miyabi informed Eleonora and would never do such a thing, and Eleonora was silent during the conversation. Miyabi noticed that the guild was stunned by the quality of their work. Even Eleonora was impressed, and the guild master only knew them by documents, so it was clear that he doubted whether C-rank and F-rank could work so well. Zion explained that the guild highly values reconnaissance missions and needs specialists who carefully assess how monsters cooperate and what the security level is, and Miyabi agreed because Zion asked them to prove their honesty. Zion said he would never ask for help from another adventurer again, and asked if they swore that their report was truthful. Liz removed the cloth from the sword and said that this was the only detail missed in the official report about the Blackwork settlement, and swore that this was all. The guild master examined the sword. He said that this was enough, noticed that the inscription matched the name of the missing adventurer, asked Eleonora to contact his closest relatives, and returned the sword to them. Eleonora asked if he was sure about his decision. Zion confirmed that they had a report, data on their guilt, and Eleonora's testimony in their defense. He admitted that at first he hardly doubted them because Liz had already proven her competence. Eleonora anxiously noted that he is usually more cautious. They checked Lisa's mission success rate, which was an impressive 98.2%. Miyabi wanted to understand why they were discussing Liz's mission statistics. Zion explained that Liz started from the bottom and rose through the ranks, consistently showing excellent results. He gave the book and noted that the monster parts and meat provided by her group were of exceptional quality, expressed a desire not to allow Liz to transfer to another guild with her skills, and said that detailed information in the report could only be provided by a person who was physically present at the scene. Zion said that he found no signs of lying, and as far as he knows, a person is considered innocent until proven guilty. He showed 2 pages from the book. They were filled with sincere thanks from clients over many years, and he trusted Liz's words as an adventurer because she had earned that trust. However, he noted that overcoming 11 tasks almost single-handedly seems unlikely. Liz admitted that she was not sure if she could do it alone. They suggested that Miyabi help play the role, and Zion asked if Miyabi took the vanguard position. Liz explained that the fight was almost over before she managed to strike. Miyabi said he left the whole fight to her, and Zion jokingly suggested to reconcile their versions. Liz insisted that Miyabi definitely won at least 2 works. Miyabi said he only supported and nothing more. Zion joked that they were supposedly a secret comedy duo. Liz made Miyabi fall silent and said that his gaze was very distorted. She directly called him a walking repository. She told Zion that he saw how much meat the Black Hawk carried for Miyabi, but she herself saw how he dug a huge hole and in about 6 seconds piled up all the dug earth, calling it simply support. She assumed that he probably had enough wood supplies to fill an entire forest. She believed that his storage was more capacious than the huge warehouse of the production guild. Miyabi interrupted and said that Angela allowed her to talk about him as if he were not present here. Zion asked her to repeat her version of events, but Liz replied that he heard her correctly and that she had already abandoned logic back then. Jane asked if Aliner thought that access to the Miyabi vault was only mine. She explained that these were just rumors. Miyabi interrupted and explained that his additional storage could hold much more than just meat. He suggested selling any materials he did not need and asked Eleonora to take them to the warehouse. Liz bowed to Zion and sincerely thanked him for his trust. Zion replied that he expected even better work from her. When Liz noticed that Zion was watching, she asked if there was anything else. He said he just felt nostalgia and nothing more. Zion noticed that she had been through a lot. He noted that her equipment previously belonged to her father. He noticed that an extremely hardworking man had raised an equally hardworking daughter who grew up with dignity. Meanwhile, Miyabi and Aliner reached the warehouse, which Miyabi considered huge. Aliner admitted that it did not measure up to the production guild's facilities. She said that historically, the main income of adventurers came from mission rewards, and even for her each payment felt more like a temporary bonus than a stable career, after which Miyabi asked if she herself was an adventurer. She said that she took this position after her party split almost 3 years ago. Having left behind the life of an adventurer, skills like disassembly returned to her slowly. Eleonora wondered if it was too easy to get injured when removing parts from a machine and guessed that he must have some technique to avoid such troubles. Miyabi was surprised that she asked for advice, thinking that mentioning his skill in gathering materials would confuse her. Instead, he said he was simply skilled with his hands. She inquired whether it was really just a matter of motor skills, and he changed the subject and said he had questions about Liz Absin. He asked to donate his share of the reward from the reconnaissance mission to the family of the sword owner. Eleonora noted that the reward would be split equally, about 100 gold in total. She asked if he was sure, and Miyabi confirmed that he had enough money for raw materials, so it was fine. She considered his gesture kind but naive, and doubted whether he would refuse payment for every mission involving a sacrifice. Miyabi found it hard to express his feelings. He said he was not sure about the future, but for now he was determined. He wanted to follow his instincts and act his own way. He did not want his conscience to burden him. He admitted that it might seem selfish, but it would not ruin him financially. He added that he did not plan to give away half of his income forever. Aliner mentioned a charity fund for families of fallen adventurers and suggested making the donation in his name this time. She warned him to remember that the reward was fair payment for life-threatening risks and that he should not underestimate it. The conversation ended and Eleonora left. 2 days later, she informed Liz and Miyabi that their contribution to the mission was recognized as significantly greater than required, so they would receive an increased reward. Yabai calculated how much the reward of 910 gold coins was worth in yen. Eleanor suggested keeping the funds in the guild's deposit if they wanted. Miyabi wanted the money to help the grieving family, although he felt it was not enough. Besides the financial reward, Miyabi was unexpectedly promoted to D rank. This came as a surprise to both him and Liz. Miyabi was stunned and puzzled. Since this promotion completely bypassed E rank, Eleonora noted that for the support class, ranks are rarely skipped, but his outstanding contribution prompted the guild to support his further development. He pondered the guild master's intentions. Eleonora said that if it became widely known that someone of F rank received such a large reward, it could cause problems. For example, their earnings were now higher than those of typical B-rank adventurers, including Eleonora herself. Miyabi thanked her for her attentiveness, and Eleonora politely said that the guild would like him to remain in the support role because they gain a lot from his efforts. As they were about to leave after thanking the guild master, Eleonora remembered that she needed to clarify something with Liz. Supporting Liz's previous statement, she asked if Liz wanted this contribution to remain anonymous as well. Liz, embarrassed, tried to stop her and said that the instructions were in the report. Eleonora smiled and apologized. Miyabi, initially confused, realized Eleonora's warning not to often sacrifice half of his salary. This concerned Liz's actions. Miyabi was delighted and kept looking at Liz. She blushed and scolded him, after which their mission officially ended. It was Liz's first meeting with the Black Hawks and her first acquaintance with the guild leader. She was so nervous she feared a heart attack. Miyabi agreed and said it was time for something new. Liz, embarrassed, asked if he meant a meeting. He replied that he wanted that too, but first suggested a victory celebration. He created a visual and culinary delight with his special Chinese meat dish cooked in a black wok. Liz was puzzled. She did not understand what Chinese cuisine was, as if it were just ordinary cooking. Miyabi avoided her questions and asked her to name which pieces of meat she wanted him to grill. She did not want to leave it to him alone, but Miyabi insisted that she would be the only one at the grill. Liz was still embarrassed and said that then everything would end too quickly and lose its pleasure. She noticed something that looked like bread and tasted it. The bun had a delicious filling that she really liked, and Miyabi explained that these were savory buns, perfect for cool weather, with a filling stewed to such tenderness that it fell apart under the fork. The filling complemented the smooth dough, less fluffy than most bread, creating a perfect texture, and Lisa was impressed by the sweet, juicy taste of the bun. After a tasty bun, Miyabi enchanted her, and she wanted more, and he served another delicious dish that ignited her curiosity. She noticed that the plate table rotates. Miyabi said that without it, traditional Chinese food would not be served. Although she did not understand what he meant, Liz considered it practical. When the table rotated, Miyabi advised her not to return it to its original position. Suddenly, Null appeared and scared them. She greeted them, ate meat buns, and said she came for the smell of meat. Miyabi was surprised that Liz knew her, and Liz was equally surprised that Miyabi knew Mel, a well-known project of Level B. They settled down and recalled the chance meeting. Nell noticed that Miyabi often gets lost. She remembered that the blacksmith wanted to talk to him about something. Miyabi asked if Nell knew what it was about. Liz was surprised that he knows Master Weiss and asked if he understands who Weiss is. Miyabi casually described Weiss as a good blacksmith and asked if he was famous. Liz and Nell exchanged glances and decided to escort him to Weiss. When White saw them together, he asked if Liz was with Miyabi, and she replied that they were at a party. Weiss asked in surprise if she minded him taking Miyabi away for a short time, and when the conversation dragged on, Miyabi felt left out and joined in. Asking Liz how she knew Mr. Weiss, Liz said he was a Black Iron Weiss, a court-recognized master, and in a sense her adoptive father. Miyabi was stunned, and Weiss thanked him for taking care of Liz. Miyabi's mind was spinning, but before he could ask about Liz's biological father, Weiss explained why he had seen him. He said that Angel, the local lord and Duke Baldini, was going to renovate his mansion, and asked if Miyabi was interested in taking on this task. Liz and Miyabi were both shocked by this. Miyabi was confused why he was chosen, and why she said he was tasked with picking people and could choose anyone. Miyabi felt this was like stepping into danger. Liz interrupted him and remarked that fulfilling an order for the Duke could bring valuable connections, and explained that Miyabi would work under the guidance of a project manager. It was necessary to give it his all to make a strong impression, so having no choice, Miyabi reluctantly agreed to take on the job. In the western quarter of Angela, aristocratic houses were located on a gently sloping hill. At the center of this area was the grandest estate of Duke Baldini. Miyabi, Weiss, and Liz arrived, but Weiss left, informing that work would start in 2 days and accommodation was already arranged. Miyabi thought with relief that he had brought spare clothes, as he barely managed to get this unexpected opportunity, and it would be unwise not to take advantage of it, since inspecting the Lord's estate was a rare privilege. During a walk with the group, he noticed a wilting flower. The man approached and described it as Cferos, our cult, known for its resilience and adaptability. Although the rose was from a much warmer region, when the man was talking about her struggle, Miyabi tried to find out who he was and why he was standing so close. Weiss turned around and warned that personal meetings with everyone could create problems and expose the man. That was Duke Trent Baldini. On the eve of departure, Liz asked Miyabi to study the Duke to avoid an awkward situation and announced that she would test him by asking what he knew about Lord Angela, who ruled this territory. Miyabi said that the Belfini House was one of the 5 great ducal houses to which the central authority of 40 granted full control over the northern lands, and the current head, Duke Trent Baldini, was known equally for his zeal and courage. Liz advised him to consider that to lead a great noble house, he needed to graduate with honors from the Royal Academy of Magic in the territory of Angela. He supported the development of 3 main guilds and could restrict the territories of other nobles if necessary. In Angeli, he emphasized free trade to expand the export market. If the rank requirements were followed, anyone could take any tasks, and for enough money, one could buy any goods or services, and Miyabi was impressed that Liz came to the city and fell in love with adventures. He noticed that the Duke's subjects were especially loyal. Liz was not exaggerating, he really was eccentric, and meanwhile Miyabi was with the team chosen by Weiss and was nervous. Although the feudal lord was somewhat strange, he could handle a person who spoke to strangers as if they were old friends. More concerning was the overly serious attitude of the workers. Duke Trent Boldingay apologized for the delay and introduced himself. He expressed his gratitude to Weiss for accepting his request. Suddenly he met Miyabi's gaze, and although Miyabi was surprised, the Duke explained that the mansion looked luxurious from the outside, but inside it had not been renovated for over 30 years, and it was starting to show, and Pritlinwood was only getting worse. At first they planned a simple renovation, but life in the modern era demanded more, so he ordered an interior that reflected modern innovations. He urged them to trust the chosen path and to unobstructedly pursue their goals with their skills. Miyabi was so inspired by the speech that his cheeks flushed, and he eagerly awaited the opportunity to work together with the other craftsmen. In the storage room, someone threw a hammer at his head. A man with a threatening appearance shouted at him and loudly warned Miyabi to be careful if he tried to suck up to the boss, claiming that he was the chosen successor. He was known as Sid with the iron skin. Miyabi was embarrassed and simply said okay when he noticed that the nickname was impressive. Another man joined and said that Sid himself chose that nickname. He introduced himself as Sid's brother, who called himself Iron Skin. Miyabi apologized for the intrusion and said he did not intend to interfere with the work. The brother replied that it was all right and was confident that Weiss had a good reason to invite him. Weiss had just arrived and reproached them for chatting, as there was little time, emphasizing that this was an order for a close friend and the reputation of his business depended on the success of the renovation. And as the project manager, he had received general sketches of the client's wishes for each part of the mansion, which they would review later. He then ordered them to start work. Miyabi, eager to help, asked what role he should take, and Weiss handed him a sheet of paper and a pen. Miyabi was surprised when Weiss gave him paper and a pen, as he expected a different task, and Weiss explained that he had a different role in mind and appointed Miyabi as the project leader. Miyabi pointed out that Weiss had not given any drawings and could not just invent a project from scratch. Weiss was not fazed by Miyabi's outburst, admitted that he had tried to come up with something that would please the Duke, but nothing worked out. He added that construction had to start the same day. Miyabi could not believe it and insisted that White had definitely planned this in advance. Weiss introduced the boy and assigned him and Miyabi to oversee the main bathroom. The nervous and shy boy greeted loudly and scared Miyabi. After Weiss left Miyabi, he sat and wondered why this was happening. Although he noticed that the boy seemed quite decent, Miyabi wondered how the small boy's body could curl up so tightly, taking up so little space. The bathroom turned out to be the most complicated, because he could not pretend and cope with its complex design requirements. Then he realized that this was an excellent opportunity, because the existing structure only needed a small update, so he could leave most of it unchanged, and the focus had to be on the interior aesthetics. This was his favorite section. The budget was not a problem, so he could create, and when he started making sketches, the guys seemed to want to talk, so Miyabi asked what he needed. Then he realized he hadn't introduced himself. The guy named Karen was so nervous that Miyabi missed her and kept calling him Karen. Miyabi explained that a project was needed before starting and suggested that Karen begin dismantling work in the meantime. Although Miyabi repeatedly called him Karen, the guy looked irritated. Although Miyabi did not understand why, when they showed their work to the Duke, he noted that one design resembled traditional styles of the Elven tribe, and the other, the architecture of Save Towards. They were brushed off, called quite ordinary. Miyabi was stunned. He went to the bathroom to think it over again because he made projects as luxurious as possible, but the Duke considered them ordinary, as if he had seen them many times, and he realized that fantasy architecture in this world was just ordinary, inconspicuous design. He remembered that Dream World, a game in the epic fantasy genre, had an aesthetic created by leading graphic designers of the gaming industry to match the genre. So Miyabi began coming up with ideas for this world, which strongly resembled Dreamworld, while Karen struggled with dismantling and the work was slow. Miyabi noticed that she was carrying the materials herself. It was hard work, and he suggested putting them in his inventory. Karen's reaction made him doubt whether she had an inventory, so he asked, and fortunately, Karen did have one. But it was filled with lunch boxes and fresh products for 2 weeks. Miyabi recalled that Liz said craftsmen were undervalued in production, so to help, she lent Kieran a hammer. With one blow, he smashed the entire floor, and Kieran kept calling him master. Although Miyabi did not like this title, Karen had already decided in his heart to become his apprentice. He begged Miyabi to teach him the technique. Miyabi explained that it comes naturally with skill improvement and extensive crafting practice. Tired, Miyabi was a bit restless, but Karen's enthusiasm kept him interested and eager to learn more about his abilities. Miyabi was not sure if he would call it talent, recalling his early difficulties. He suggested that Karen might have the same potential if he tried. By morning, the demolition was complete, and Karen was surprised by the speed. Miyabi recalled the question. He asked Karen if he knew the purpose of the structure resembling a pit, but Karen did not have time to answer because the Duke suddenly appeared and explained that it was a reservoir for boiling water. Miyabi was surprised again, but the Duke calmly explained that boiling water was carried by bucket for the bath. Miyabi was surprised to notice that the lack of running water complicated the work. The Duke mentioned servants with fire magic who perfectly heated the water. But old age forced him to retire, and this unremarkable job was hard to fill. The Duke asked if Miyabi had already come up with a good idea. Miyabi replied that he had an updated project, or rather, he had improved the initial one. The Duke decided to wait patiently, like an ordinary person. The new design was inspired by a game from another company, not the one made by Dreamworld, so Miyabi was confident it would stand out. However, the Duke noticed that the architecture had roots in the elven styles of Masserini and Dynasty. When the day ended, WICE reported on their progress and added that everything went smoothly. He noted that it was too easy to please the Duke, and the challenges would lose their appeal. The Duke said he approved the final sketches of the bat design, but noticed WISES's interest. Deep down, the Duke acknowledged his habit of not abandoning projects with real potential halfway. He joked that Weiss's pursuit of originality made him a stubborn old man like everyone else, and Weiss admitted he still had much to learn, even though he held the title of master, because success depends on realizing the client's vision. He placed great hopes on the new group of rookies he had recruited. When Liz came to the park, Elinor was engrossed in reading and apologized for being late. Elinor waved it off and praised Liz's outfit. Liz said it had been a long time since their last meeting. She was worried she would look too much like an adventurer and put Elinor in an awkward position if she didn't dress up. Preparing the outfit took time, and she noticed it was easier with Naiabai. Ellen asked if it was wise to use someone else's inventory as a personal wardrobe, which made Liz worried because she thought she had been rude. Reflecting, Eleanor realized that she had not seen Miyabi in the guild recently. Liz explained that he was invited to help with the repair of the Lord's estate. Eleonora was surprised by this unexpected news. Meanwhile, Miyabi was already ready to give up on the repair project because 3 days had passed and the Duke rejected all proposed options, so the bathroom repair was completely stopped. To resolve this, he went to the Duke's library to study the local architectural styles of this world. He could not rely on Karen, who was transferred to another project thanks to his magic, and the vague requirement of the Duke to create something unprecedented again troubled him. It was too ambiguous. The only requirement of the Duke was a design that did not resemble a bathroom. But that did not work. This disappointment was familiar, reminding him of his previous work when the boss demanded results according to the specification and did not tolerate delays. Friends emphasized that it is important to understand the client's perspective and listen to their needs. Thinking deeply, Miyabi truly got lost. All the luxurious surroundings looked the same. This disoriented him. Seeing a path outside, he went there to orient himself. A maid appeared and sternly said that there was no construction site there, if he thought so. Seeing her, Miyabi confessed with relief that he was lost. But the maid looked unfriendly. She told him that only household members were allowed further. He asked how far the bathroom was, and she politely replied that it was nearby and offered to show him the way. Miyabi said that he could follow the instructions to save her time if she was busy, but she still insisted on accompanying him while they walked. Introducing himself, Miyabi spoke about his role in the construction project, but his attempts to start a conversation were met with silence. Sensing that the conversation was fading, he was left with an awkward stranger. He tried to start a conversation because he couldn't stand the silence and just wanted to get to the toilet. Fortunately, he saw Nell playing with her puppies. When an attractive woman next to Mel, who was playing with her, asked who he was, Mel introduced Miyabi as a guy prone to getting lost, and Miyabi boasted about his recent promotion to D rank. Elegant clothing and the refined voice of the woman aroused doubts. Her name was Chiffon Baldani, and Miyabi understood that she was the Duke's daughter. To change the subject, he asked what they were doing, joking about the attack on Mr. Vedomed. Chiffon explains that she and Mel often pretend like that, and in the heat of the moment her hand slipped, causing Mr. Bear to fall into the mud. The strict maid Alicia regretted that they did not call her and washed him themselves. Chiffon replied that she should sometimes wash her own things. Nell asked why Miyabi was here and joked that he got lost again. Miyabi replied that accidentally getting into the Lord's estate would be a problem, admitted that he got lost, but said that was not the main thing, and explained why he was asked to help with the repairs. Then he admitted that he was assigned to design the entire main bathroom, and the work was not progressing. Chiffon seemed to recognize him. Someone remarked that he must be very skilled to handle the full design phase in such a compressed form. She admitted that it was difficult for her to meet her father's tastes. She noticed that her father, always busy, values rare moments of rest in the bath with the long-awaited Miyabi's product. She explained that she could not help directly, and ultimately it was their responsibility, not hers. Mel and Chiffon continued washing the bears. Miyabi thought about Chiffon's words. Ideas swirled in his head, and he felt inspired. He suddenly stood up and asked Alicia to immediately take him to Duke Baldini. When he told the Duke about his new idea, he saw the expression of satisfaction on the Duke's faces for the first time. Karen ran to the bathroom, amazed that the design was approved, happily confirmed to Miyabi and apologized for the long wait. Finally, they could start the construction work. Karen was again at all of Miyabi. He couldn't believe he had created a design that the Duke himself praised and was eager to join in. Karen asked if he had mastered the special technique that Miyabi showed him. Maybe someday he could make a master out of him, like Miyabi. He pestered Miyabi to teach him because he was tired of feeling useless. He appreciated the kindness of Master Weiss, who took him on, because many in the workshop skillfully used magic, and his attempts were mediocre, and he didn't like standing aside while others worked hard. Miyabi noticed that this time Karen was very serious, and remembering that Karen was the first craftsman he met in this world, imagined himself in his place if he had arrived with nothing. He was determined to help, hesitated, but agreed to try. It was exciting for him, Karen. Miyabi first asked what Karen could do with his current skills. Karen confidently replied that he often made hammers. He gathered wood, processed parts, and assembled them. Miyabi asked why he did not use his craft skills. It is explained here that their use yields poor results with low shape accuracy. And correcting the shapes took so much time that it nullified any saved time. Miyabi thought that his skills might be unique, but since Karen had a functional inventory and magical abilities of her class, a solution would probably be found. This solution meant a step forward. Repairing the bathroom required exactly those skills and provided a clear plan of action. Miyabi entrusted Karen to use her crafting skills to make 5,000 small blocks. Since making them manually in such quantity was impractical, Karen had to hone her crafting skills needed for improvement. He emphasized that this was an important, central job for the bath project and asked Karen to give it all her strength. Although she was uneasy, Karen promised to do it and went to a corner to start. Miyabi thought that Weiss brought them together because both were craftsmen and could support each other. While Karen prepared the blocks, Miyabi worked on an automatic bath with temperature control, and the components were simple. They were stone blocks with water or fire magic. Enchanted water blocks created water, and fire blocks heated it upon activation. He arranged them alternately along the edge of the bath so there was always hot water. The system worked without failures, and there was no longer a need to run with buckets to the well. Obviously, potentially setting up wells. While working, he assessed the available building materials. Weiss arrived, having heard that the work was approved, and wanted to see the design. Before sharing, Miyabi asked him to be kind to Karen, who was suffering because of his demanding requests. Weiss smiled, impressed by the automatic production and water heating system. Miyabi, unusually proud. He explained that separating the improvements simplified the process while maximizing the results. He beamed with pride for his work. Suddenly and wisely insist that they return immediately because Karen Rashton reports a problem. The bathtub was overflowing. Alicia and the other maids cleaned up and left. Miyabi apologized for the mess he had made. Weiss pointed out that the setting of infinite water production without drainage caused the problem. Miyabi felt like a child who had just been scolded. But Karen found it strange because she noticed that the bats always used a lot of hot water and did not understand how it was drained before. Weiss explained that the 30-year-old estate infrastructure relied on magic that expelled water outside, so there was no drainage system. Miyabi understood that the plumbing would have to be done from scratch. He explained the concept to them because they did not know this term. Weiss pointed out two mistakes in Miyabi's plan. Firstly, the original bathtub design was poorly executed. Miyabi asked if the checkerboard pattern was ugly, but the issue was not that, but the alignment of the tiles. Miyabi thought he watered well, but why was he asked to take off his shoes and check himself? When Miyabi checked the bathtub, he scalded himself. And why did it explain that the effects of spells can be adjusted by changing the supply of magical energy, although it was impressive to boil water using only spells? Blocks with such high heat emission can burn the skin. The second problem was the overly massive stone foundation, because the Duke's estate foundation was extremely strong, made of large stone blocks in 3 layers, and it was necessary to find a way to remove several blocks for proper drainage. Miyabi saw no problem with this. Karin boasted that his master's technique would easily handle this. To dispel doubts, Miyabi demonstrated the movement, which further confused Weiss about her true nature. After the excavations, Miyabi told about the idea that arose during the digging. Wise with a gloomy expression, as if they anticipate it, Miyabi was already used to such reactions. He suggested that since the thermal power of the unit was fixed, a separate tank for heating water could be installed. He described how it works. Weiss was interested in why the water automatically flowed into the river. Miyabi admitted that she could not stop it due to the constant formation of water, and Weiss added that for ordinary people such waste seemed extravagant. He recalled his first days at the tavern when there was only a cold bucket for bathing. He warned that dumping hot water into the river was probably a mistake because it could harm the local fish. Karin suggested cooling the water before it enters the river, like blowing on hot soup, because it might solve the problem. Stezka began looking for ideas to solve it. That evening Alina returned to inform Zion, the guild master of adventurers, with his strange pile of rumor sheets. She reported that some adventurer was performing contract work for the production guild without an official request. At the Duke's estate, 2 workers noticed that Miyabi and Karen worked late every night and became interested in what they were doing. Miyabi explained that he was making a prototype of the reliefs for tomorrow's construction. They advised him to rest and warned that late nights could harm his health. Miyabi insisted that he was fine and that he was almost finished. But it was difficult to cut the skins properly because they never looked right. Other workers were interested in his prototype. Sid was also present. Astaba excitedly offered to share his rich experience, and Sid confidently said he could handle it, impressing everyone with his exquisite work. Miyabi was impressed by how delicate and bright the petals looked. He did not suspect that the blacksmiths were capable of such things. The workers laughed at his reaction. And Sid's brother clarified that Sid was a sculptor, not a blacksmith. Miyabi was even more surprised because she thought everyone worked in the forge. Sid's brother explained that their workshop was intended for different kinds of work, not just forging. Hiring various masters, including eccentric ones, such as a sculptor trying his hand at blacksmithing. For them, official titles did not matter. Every craftsman could create freely, and this strengthened mutual loyalty and wisdom. Miyabi learned that the renovation of Lord's Manor was a very prestigious project. It involved so many workers. It was a rare opportunity for determined craftsmen. They were determined to preserve the name Black Iron with the highest quality work because everyone relied on them. Karen's sudden scream scared Miyabi, but it was justified because he successfully created an instant block with his skill. Miyabi, almost as fascinated as Karen, watched him repeat the trick. Miyabi, delighted by Karen's progress, noticed his level up. Karen was glad that he could now mass-produce blocks. Miyabi asked him to imbue them all with wind magic, which impressed not only Kirin, but everyone present. Later, they explained that the enchantments were complex, and performing hundreds a day was considered advanced magic. The next day, Miyabi carefully studied the prototype, that Sid helped with. She decided to ask him for advice on sculpture. Sid could not believe that Miyabi had intruded on his site for this, as he saw no reason to help, especially since no one considered her draft unattractive, so that should have been enough. Miyabi replied that although his work might be acceptable, he strove to do it as best as possible, not just settle for enough. At first, Sid looked touched. But then they started teasing Miyabi, calling him a failure because he did not match the talent of a true sculptor. Miyabi responded that there is nothing wrong with striving for success, claiming that ambition drives progress in the world. Eventually, Sid agreed to teach him sculpture, but only after work. Miyabi was shocked because he expected a refusal, and Sid shrugged and said it was no problem. And he gladly undermined Miyabi's confidence. After work, Sid began teaching him the basics of sculpture, while the Duke watched from his room. Karin, Miyabi, and their team worked tirelessly day and night, and their dedication earned praise. One evening after work, Sid and his brother were talking with other workers. Noted that only the final construction task from Sid remained to complete their project. Sid remarked on how unusual it was. The Duke was to personally arrive for the site inspection. Only Miyabi's bath remained to be checked. The Duke and Weiss arrived at Bathard Mentorns. When confidently asked if Miyabi was ready to show his creation, Miyabi replied that he could do it anytime the Duke wished. They started with the fitting room. During the inspection, Kirin whispered to Miyabi about his anxiety, and Miyabi admitted that he usually also gets nervous before direct client evaluations. The Duke approved the wardrobe without any problems, but Miyabi, although confident in his work, was still worried. Even excellent work can disappoint if it does not meet expectations. They proceeded to the spacious, newly renovated main bathroom in the Duke's estate. Before the inspection, Miyabi highlighted the key features by unveiling the magnificent wellness and relaxation center designed for tranquility. The space resembled an open garden and created a calm, relaxing atmosphere for bathers, while small Karin blocks circulated air so that the water was constantly moving, and people could transition from the bath to the modern steam room for health and recovery. The previous design used familiar sculptural elements, while the new one had 4 unique types of covered hot springs. Now the greenhouse with the garden could be visited even in the middle of winter. The Duke acknowledged your difficult start, but noted the success of the project. He mentioned another detail of the plan that he had not seen before. Miyabi signaled the workers on the roof, who covered the glass roof with a large black cloth. During the official inspection, every detail had to match perfectly. Although familiar with blueprints, the combination of soft light in nature was impressive. Miyabi noticed a statue from the original public baths, too beautiful to discard, so he included it to honor the new design. He prioritized the health of body and mind, without compromising aesthetics thanks to exquisite decor. This is exactly what the Duke wanted, and it started a new era. The Duke sincerely thanked Miyabi for his efforts. Miyabi agreed to this work on a whim. But thanks to this, he met his first craftsman companion, befriended again a person restrained in emotions, and found good people who helped him in difficult times. Despite several failures, he would never trade this experience, because the joy itself was a sufficient reward. The Duke announced the start of the official inspection. Miyabi confirmed that the plumbing met the requirements and invited to conduct testing. The Duke entered the warm bath, and Miyabi silently doubted whether his presence here was necessary. At dinner, Miyabi noticed that the Dukes behaved completely differently in company and during official duties, and he worried whether they were suitable for an aristocratic reception. Fearing that the presence of commoners might cause problems, Whist assured him that they were invited and there was no need to restrain oneself out of propriety. He noticed it was strange that Miyabi had made baths before, and Miyabi explained that he was inspired by the spa in his hometown. His first design presentations completely failed, and he wondered if the Duke might consider them strange. But it didn't hit the mark. Dukes alongside encyclopedic knowledge and mansions filled with art. It hinted that he would like greater grandeur. But a casual phrase from Chiffon about her father lacking time for himself showed that he imagined a quiet corner. Soothing sounds of a waterfall, subtle visual design, and restrained accents would unite everything and emphasize noble dignity. Traditional Japanese style would be simpler, but would not reflect his unique approach. He thought Sid would call him a bad loser again. Weiss was glad he agreed to this job. Sid and his brother invited Miyabi and praised the delicious food. Meanwhile, Chiffon entered the bathroom and greeted the Duke. Having informed him that she had seen off the last guests, the Duke thought with relief that her daughter, changing the subject, spared him the endless chatter of the Lord Chamberlain. Chiffon noticed that with the approach of winter and the late hour, the bathroom remained exceptionally warm. The Duke explained that he had devised a system in which residual water from the bath circulates under the floor to maintain constant warmth and allow even tropical plants to grow in this room. His weak CDR roses were transplanted and restored. Chiffon was delighted. 'Tis thought that roses would bloom in spring like her father's curly hair, and she wondered if they could grow royal capital flowers here. She asked if he was going to add new plants to the garden, but he kept it a secret even from her. Chiffon noticed the original plan and pointed to the line that showed the road to the city. The next day Liz was urging me. His slow pace annoyed Liz, and Miyabi, tired after returning home the day before, thought there was no need to hurry, but Liz insisted they could not be late. Curious about what they were here for, Liz pointed ahead and saw that a crowd had already gathered. It was the opening of the hot water pool, where people soaked their feet in warm water. Miyabi recalled that due to the limitations of the enchanted masonry, hot water was supplied continuously, and before draining the excess into the river, it went through long pipes, giving some heat to the greenhouses. He also proposed a public pool for wading, which Liz was eagerly anticipating, but Miyabi forgot because of the chaos. They relax in warm water and talk. Later Liz said that Eleonora asked Miyabi to visit when he returned. Liz, not knowing what she wanted, replied that she was not sure, but noted that Eleonora indicated the time and date in the guild master's room. Liz, Miyabi, Zion, and Eleanor sat in an awkward silence. I will do it halfway and leave them alone. Zane revealed that the Adventurers Guild was hired by the Producers Guild without his knowledge or permission. Liz and Miyabi sincerely apologized. Miyabi admitted that he did not realize how important it was and did not think about the consequences. Liz, feeling guilty, confessed that she pushed him to take the job without considering the consequences, and Zion acknowledged his fault for not foreseeing this, said it did not bother him, but he wished to be warned in the future. Since then they had been more or less safe, because Master Weiss made an inquiry, and working with him prepared Zion for Miyabi's habit of bypassing permissions. He warned them to be careful, because they were attracting significant attention. Having made the inquiry, Zion published a message specifically requesting about both, and from now on they meet with the client directly to confirm details. Since the client was Duke Bolding himself, they were stunned and began whispering. Miyabi asked if dukes usually appear so simply, but the answer was clear. Liz did not expect that her advice, meant to impress the Duke, would lead to this. Their gossip was obvious, so Zion asked them to whisper more quietly in the presence of the Duke. They calmed down. Liz introduced herself, and the Duke dismissed formalities and asked them to relax. He praised Miyabi's skill, was surprised to learn from the wise man that he was primarily an adventurer, and became interested upon noticing that there was another participant in Miyabi's squad. Liz understated her abilities compared to Miyabi, but the Duke, after reviewing her achievements, asked her not to be modest, although usually her experience would not be enough for a nobleman's request. The journey of 150 lead to the capital required reliable protection for his daughter. Miyabi saw this as a chance for Liz to prove herself, and Liz boldly said she was ready to fulfill his request, but noted that a long escort was difficult because the squad usually needed a mage, vanguard, and rearguard with additional people, at least 2 in the vanguard and 1 more in the rearguard, and without enough people the mission could not be ethically accepted. The Duke praised her for thoroughness and said he had already found several more members. A well-balanced group of rank A Red Cliff and rank B adventurer Nell, who expressed her concerns. Working with these experienced adventurers, the Duke entrusted Miyabi and Liz with proving their worth without stopping. They set out on a new mission to escort the daughter of Duke Chippen to the Magic Academy in the royal capital. Other escort members were very capable, so Miyabi and Liz were almost redundant, and the Duke gave them an additional task to prove their worth. As they left the Duke's estate, Miyabi noticed that Lizzie was silent and did not calm her down. He reminded her that she could still refuse the escort mission if she had doubts. Liz confirmed that she wanted to accept it because such opportunities were rare, but admitted that she had doubts. Even before they managed to discuss her concerns, they noticed Eleonora. The guild master asked them to contact her, and she offered to guide them through the necessary procedures. As they walked, she greeted them on the Duke's request and noted the unusual turn in their careers, adding that the uniqueness of Miyabi far exceeded her own, and Miyabi was not sure if the noble's request was truly that exceptional. Eleonora explained that such requests are usually granted only to adventurers of rank B or higher, who have wide recognition, trust, and significant achievements. By turning their situation into an unprecedented one, accepting this would set them apart among their peers. Liz suggested that it was primarily a test to check their reliability. Eleonora asked if the Duke said this directly, and Liz clarified that he told them to prove that they were worthy, hinting that if he could not prove his usefulness, he would end up on the list of the unnecessary. She also noticed that he did not specify a departure date and decided that this was done intentionally. The check of their diligence as reliable adventurers would not overlook such details. Miyabi disagreed and said that Liz overanalyzes everything and the Duke is not a cunning villain. The women liked his manner of speaking and naivety, explaining that the nobles thought differently, and this determined the overall logic. Miyabi admitted that their upbringing was very different. But he wondered how the nobles perceived their role in the world and felt that he might regret asking. When they were walking, they met other members of the escort mission. Liz, seeing them, asked Miyabi to be silent and not move, hiding behind him. A group of adventurers passed by. Miyabi could not resist and asked if Liz was okay, noticing that she was sweating heavily. Hearing Liz's name, one from the group stopped and turned around, and her facial expression changed when she made sure it was Liz. She immediately hugged Liz, playfully treating her like a baby. The other members of the group were also happy to see her. Miyabi froze, watching them do this to her. Liz explained that the members of the Red Rock team were old friends. She introduced them: Laura, the healer; Tyson, the burly tank; and Darth, the adventurer with long, noticeable ears. Miyabi's guessed Laura was an elf and found it strange that she spoke the Kansai dialect. I will just clarify that Laura speaks with a standard elvish accent. Dart asked who Miyabi was. He introduced himself, said he works with Liz and will be their support. Their dramatic reaction caught him by surprise. Laura couldn't believe that at their party there were only a boy and a girl together, but Alina confirmed it. While Laura struggled with the thought that the sweet girl she helped raise had gone on adventures with a boy. Tyson said that if Liz takes this relationship seriously, he will support them, although he doesn't really want to. Dart sternly asked if Miyabi was ready to protect Liz at the cost of his own life, and Miyabi wondered if they understood what support means. But they ignored him. Dart repeated the question with the same persistence, and Miyabi realized he had to either agree or refuse. It was hard for him to just say yes. He answered that he was not sure what they meant by being ready to protect Liz, because she was clearly more skilled than him, and described her as a strong, capable traveler, and said that his role was to take care of her comfort during adventures, because that was his contribution. Although he considered his answer reasonable, Dart interpreted it as Miyabi's desire to make Liz the happiest girl in the world. Dart approached and declared that he accepts Miyabi's challenge, saying that if she is so determined, he must prove that he can support during adventures and show his determination. They were evaluating whether he was worthy of their favorite liars on the journey, expecting him to meet the standard if he values their bond. Miyabi was puzzled by Dart's conclusion, but had to agree. After meeting with Liz's old acquaintances, they visited Weiss to prepare to talk about that meeting. Liz was upset that they showed up just when she hoped to avoid them. Miyabi asked if their interaction had always been so tense. Liz explained that all three from the Red Cliff group were experienced adventurers with proven talent and fame, so she felt like an outsider. Her biological father was a member of Red Cliff. When she was little, the teenager entertained her between missions. Back then, they just spoiled the sweet child. But 8 years ago, her father died during a mission, and Miyabi recalled how Liz introduced Weiss as her adoptive father, so now she understood the context. Liz said that after her father's death, the team became overly protective, and it made her life difficult, especially when she tried to keep her distance. She apologized for confusing Miyabi. Clarifying that her staff was made exclusively for her father, Weiss jokingly urged her to stop dwelling on gloomy topics, saying that she only ran off on adventures and came home to repair weapons, and Weiss seemed displeased with this habit. Although their relationship remained friendly, Miyabi guessed that Weiss and Liz's father had once been close. But he pondered the cautious distance between Liz and Weiss. While Miyabi was thinking, Weiss inquired about their plans for the escort mission and whether they refused only because of Red Cliff. Liza Farms considered it unwise to refuse such an opportunity, although she had some doubts, and after exchanging remarks with Darts, Weiss jokingly appreciated Miyabi's response. An 89 out of 10 for risk of disaster. If they did not clarify the misunderstanding soon, Miyabi feared that the situation could escalate rapidly. He thought that maybe he had not explained that he was only an assistant because he felt that Red Cliff was not listening. Liz calmly said that they got into this trouble because they believed his words. In her imagination, Miyabi made a relationship diagnosis scheme where he asked if Redcliffe thought they were dating and Liz confirmed that yes, she pushed him to resolve it. After a moment of reflection, Miyabi pretended that he had a stupid idea, denied that his previous ideas were that bad, so Liz dismissed it as complete nonsense. He insisted that he had come up with a better plan that did not require clarifying the misunderstanding. His plan was to let Red Cliff remain in his mistaken belief. Meanwhile, Elinor was working in the guild while others discussed Red Cliff. Unlike her colleagues, she did not like it. 8 years ago, Red Cliff became heroes during the monster invasion in the world capital and gained worldwide fame as respected adventurers, leaving her puzzled by their behavior, for example, pretending to be cute to extract information about Liz. Later, Liz knocked on the door and was delighted to see Eleonora, whom she admired, and Eleonora asked why she had come. She was warmly received with tea. Elinor apologized for coming without permission. Miyabi said it was okay, preparing for the possibility of being scolded. Assuming they had made a mistake again, she was ready to apologize. Eleonora reassured them that she was not going to scold. She urgently needed to confirm the mission parameter updates. When Eleonora shared the big news, Liz's scream echoed throughout the city, and she could not believe she had been appointed mission leader. An hour ago, Red Cliff approached Eleonora with a request. When she asked about their intentions, Dard announced that they wanted to appoint Liz as mission leader. Surprised, Eleonora asked if everyone agreed. They confirmed unanimous support for the escort mission under the leadership of Liz leading Chiffon. Eleonora noted that usually the highest-ranking party member leads. Dark clarified that this was more a recommendation than a strict rule. When asked why, they said it was a fun surprise for Liz. Eleonora realized that Liz had not been told about it. Liz panicked. She did not know how to command and be a rank-and-file adventurer. Eleonora explained that she had written permission from the client and it was not mandatory. Liz could refuse. Liz could not believe that the Duke of Baldinia had proven it. Seeing that Liz was upset, Miyabi tried to cheer her up. He said that the role meant greater trust and more chances to impress the Duke with what he wanted. However, it did not help. Liz was worried that people would start gossiping that a party of level A, like Red Cliff, had given command to some nobody of ranks. When everyone was indifferent to this, the thought of public attention troubled her. She was exhausted by unexpected problems. Meanwhile, Duke Baldini was talking with Alicia, who asked what she needed to check. She had heard about the latest updates and doubted his true intentions when he appointed unverified personnel. Baldini explained that Red Cliff had requested this so insistently that he saw no reason to refuse. Alicia doubted whether they were exceeding their authority. She crossed the line when she asked if personal whims were more important than her daughter's safety. When Baldini looked at her sternly, she realized her mistake and fell silent. Baldini smiled, acknowledged that it might look that way, and thanked her for her constant concern for Chiffon. He advised her not to question his decisions and to focus on her duties after the preparation was completed. Everyone gathered near the city gates. Miyabi was delighted to see Liz and asked if her backpack was the only luggage. Liz confirmed this. She handed it to him and said she relied on him as a support member. Red Cliff arrived with huge luggage, clearly testing Miyabi's capabilities. Liz reprimanded them, especially Dart, for his strange manner of speaking, although he was middle-aged. Dart reminded her that Miyabi was expected to show what comfort is and challenged Miyabi, saying Miyabi could not be called support if he couldn't handle the luggage. Miyabi found Dart's audacity amusing and thought he dared to challenge him despite knowing his reputation. Miyabi confidently approached Dart's luggage. He effortlessly put it into his inventory, then just as easily moved Laura's and Tyson's bags. The group whispered, amazed at how he fit everything into his inventory, and realized the rumors had underestimated his abilities. Liz called them. They criticized their excessive luggage as irresponsible for experienced travelers. She noticed that Miyabi's things could withstand it, but usually it would burden the carriage. She asked them to reflect on their actions, and they agreed. She reminded them that they had chosen her as their leader, so they should at least behave as if they respected her authority. Miyabi informed Liz that the clients, Duke Baldini, Chiffon, Alicia, and the guild master were together. Liz bowed before the Duke and promised to ensure their safety during the 2-week journey to the capital. The Duke considered her reliable and introduced his daughter Chiffon and her maid Alicia. The guild master admitted that he was nervous, noted that leading an escort team of A rank was a good opportunity for Liz to gain leadership experience, and he expected her report on success. They were preparing to depart. Miyabi asked where Mel was, and Liz replied that she was napping in the carriage because she had signed up for night shifts herself. The Duke reminded Chiffon to write home more often. and the S-Square mission began. During lunch, Miyabi found a convenient place to eat. Red Cliff agreed. And the Lord announced that it was time for the second trial, cooking, a support role with high expectations for Miyabi. When he showed his formation, everyone was surprised. Liz noticed that it was different from his usual options, and Miyabi explained that his standard ones were too small for such a number of people. Red Cliff demanded an explanation, but asked them to wait while he prepared lunch. Smiling, Miyabi felt that his cunning plan had started successfully. He felt guilty for involving Chiffon and Alicia in his petty disputes, but promised to try to fix it. He politely offered them seats. Alicia realized she was sitting next to Chiffon. She was standing, but Chiffon insisted that Miyabi deal with it. Soon Dart smelled a pleasant scent and moved toward its source. He saw stewed vegetables and oxtail for lunch and was surprised how Miyabi managed to prepare it, but Miyabi said it was already in his inventory. Dart criticized the serving of food with a strong smell in the forest because he feared it would attract monsters, but when they tasted it, everyone fell silent. Focused on the food, Mel approached and asked for another portion. After lunch, Liz looked at the map and noticed that the journey was going much easier and progress was better than she expected. Dart teased Miyabi again, saying that despite the fatigue, there was no time to rest, and Miyabi replied that he still had plenty of strength. He added that as soon as it got dark, a comfortable camp was needed. After luggage and food, this was the expected next challenge, and anticipating this, Miyabi asked Liz to allow him to prove himself. Dart ordered him to show his tent because he understood what they were waiting for. Miyabi showed a whole house that he had brought. Having opened the door, he invited them on a tour. They were surprised that the house was used as a camp. They demanded an explanation, but Miyabi made a mistake and thought it was about horses. Dark explained that they wanted detailed reports about everything they saw, as if these were ordinary things. Miyabi realized he forgot to pave the path between the house and the stable, so he started doing it. Dark couldn't believe that Miyabi was looking down at his feet when something happened that had never happened before. It seemed strange to him that the house appeared out of nowhere, and he was annoyed by Miyabi's indifferent expression. He insisted that Liz intervene, but she was already captivated by Miyabi's story about the cop trim dibs under the tower. Miyabi was pleased that his strategy was working, and in response to the provocations of the Red Cliffs, he pushed them to take his actions literally, hoping that over time they would stop doubting and analyzing. He called her tactic, if it doesn't make sense, just give up. Liz adapted much faster than she initially reacted. But the Red Cliffs are not giving up yet. Dart noted that the primitive structure could hardly be called comfortable, but Liz said that protection from rain and wind was sufficient. She noticed that the worst things in adventures are cold and hunger. For Claire Dark, she would not have trusted Liz Miyabi if the house had been cold or drafty. They went inside and saw a cozy, warm interior. The house impressed them. Miyabi looked at the red rock. Feeling the heat, they were a bit stunned, but decided they would recover and started preparing dinner. Meanwhile, Alicia was looking at the puzzled Chiffon, who had just come out of a warm bath. She was surprised that she could wash up on the road. She asked about their room, and Alicia explained that it was their cabin. Chiffon thought she would stay in the main house. Miyabi suggested that a pajama party, just for the two of them, would be calmer. Alicia felt guilty and apologized for not taking care of her. Chiffon insisted that Salisha not skip meals because she had been pulling the cart all day and must be very tired. By nature, Alicia did not want to be idle. Chiffon confirmed her feelings and said that in all her years of service, she had never doubted that it would be delicious. Sitting opposite her, Chiffon embraced her and said she was doing wonderfully. One journey exhausts the body, whether you are of noble origin or not. Usually that was the case. While resting, Alicia noticed that the mattress was softer than the folding beds in the manor. Recalling the day, she felt guilty for not helping at all. Although Chiffon brushed it off, Alicia could not agree with that. She decided to keep calm and behave better in the morning. On the second day, it was raining during the escort. Yabai woke up, saw that Mel was wet, covered her with a blanket, asked if anything noticeable had happened during the night, and Mel replied that nothing had happened, only the Red Cliffs snored almost louder than the rain. Liz approached and warned Miyabi that they could postpone departure until the rain stopped. Miyabi asked how much the heavy rain would affect their schedule. Liz replied that it was just heavy now. The weather in that region was very unpredictable, so she planned to check around noon if it had calmed down, and said they could stay another night if needed. Miyabi prepared breakfast and is now watching. Claiming her soul in the night watch, she received a special surprise. Miyabi prepared delicious ramen. Seeing the dish smell, Liz also asked for some. Miyabi inquired if she was sure it wasn't too heavy for the morning. But she did not know what the word heady meant and realized that he had underestimated a teenager's appetite. He decided to wake the old people. They knocked, but received no answer. At first, Miyabadi thought that Red Cliff was over, but that day it was already late. Alicia came out, hearing the noise. Miyabi greeted her. She asked what time it was, and Liz reassured her that there was no need to worry. They would wait until the rain stopped. Miyabi noticed that it was gloomy over Red Cliff. Alicia inquired about breakfast, and the abbey confirmed that it was ready. To ask if she wanted to first change or fix her hairstyle, she realized that she was in transparent pajamas and with messy hair. Alicia slammed the door and stepped back. Liz called Miyabi ruthless because of his tactlessness. Having prepared, Alicia apologized and wanted to correct her mistakes. She offered to prepare whatever he wanted, but Miyabi said that cooking was not her concern. She insisted that she did not differentiate between tasks. Chiffon joined in, swayed, and praised this pleasant, unparalleled sense of duty. She suggested allowing Alicia to continue if it did not disturb others. They were happy to work with Miyabi. The rain continued, so they stayed another day to monitor the weather. Red Cliff apologized, rested until late in the day, and looked embarrassed. Miyabi served the ram he had prepared for Liz, and after the meal, they behaved normally again. Miyabi patiently awaited her correction to someday undergo desensitization in Liz's lake. The next day, the weather seemed safe for travel. Liz approached Miyagi's window and asked for food. Alicia invited him to the kitchen, promising not to overeat anymore. Chiffon laughed and pointed to the Alicia rest on the floor, so as not to lie on overly soft pillows. Knowing that she was strict and serious, Miyabi refrained from remarks that could embarrass her even more. Alishin purchased preparations for breakfast that had begun. All Miyabi secretly noticed her charming appearance. At the same time, Guild Master Yang met. Zahn greeted the Production Guild Master Jorgi and asked if he had been waiting long. Zahn hoped to delay this meeting. But now avoiding it was impossible. He politely bowed his head and apologized for the problems caused by the repair contract. Jorgi, an irritable man, called the situation a pointless fuss. He scolded Zion for not controlling the guild members and hiring an incompetent fool. He told Zion to be grateful that he was not blacklisted and cut off from guild affairs. Zion, though angry, remained silent so as not to escalate the conflict. He admitted he should have been more careful and promised to be more attentive in the future. Jorgi was still angry and remained unanswered. Duke Baldini appeared unexpectedly and said that Jorgi still despised the craftsman. He was glad to see Zahn and said he wanted to show him something, leading Zion to the bathroom made by Miyabi. John was noticeably stunned and remarked that even experienced specialists would find it difficult to create such work. The Duke noted that many craftsmen made low-quality products, but Miyabi could match talented small craftsmen, having only an oversized space in the inventory. Miyabi established connections with other influential ducal families. The Duke pondered how Zion sees Miyabi and said that Miyabi as an adventurer would become a key advantage for Angoulême. The journey from Angoulême to the capital lasted about 150 li and was supposed to be completed in 2 weeks. To walk on foot from dawn to sunset, the group walked under relentless rain, and the hike became exhausting. On the 6th day of their mission, rain can again find the mine doors. Chiffon was worried that they might not make it to the capital in time. Liz apologized and explained that they had to temporarily pause. Miyabi inquired whether the school would start before their arrival. Liz shared her concern that she was falling behind in her studies. Liz admitted that her excuses might seem weak. And with Angela, she focused on managing estates and establishing connections with influential guilds and nobles. As the daughter and heiress of a feudal lord, her role was mostly political. Long winter holidays often disrupted studies, so after returning, teachers gave additional assignments to catch up on missed work. Liz was afraid that when she arrived, she would have to study for several nights in a row. She asked if she knew which topics would have to be covered, and Liz confirmed that she did. Liz, blushing, offered to study with her if she agreed. Although initially surprised, she agreed and they began studying together. While they were talking, Miyabi and Laura looked completely confused. Miyabi was shocked that Laura did not follow her, even though she had a spellbook on her belt. Laura showed him the contents of the book and explained that it is usually assumed that a traveler with a book knows magical theory well. Laura admitted that this was not her strong suit, and she did not know how to teach theory to a noble girl. When Laura looked at Liz, she noticed that she resembled her father. She was fascinated by Liz's knowledge and asked where Liz had studied, and Liz admitted that she was self-taught, which surprised Shivan, who believed that Wise had taught her. Liz, not wanting to burden Wise with tuition fees, worked in the Adventurers Guild and studied in its library. Chiffon was surprised that they were making friends with such an impressive woman. Liz was shocked and downplayed her skills, saying she was only repeating theory. Their conversation was interrupted by Laura, who sneezed. Liz advised Laura to wear a shirt because of the strange weather, as the rainy season had not yet begun, and she wanted to find out the reason. Dart came and urgently asked to convene a meeting. He visited a neighboring village, where locals said the strange weather had lasted for a week. The village branch of the Adventurers Guild provided weather data for 5 years. Liz reviewed it. They noticed that the rainy season had started earlier, so the rains would not cease for a long time. Where snow covered the royal capital, where high peaks served as natural protection, as they ascended from the valley, it became colder. It was more difficult. If they had moved faster, they could have outrun the worst snowstorms during the trip. From the next day, Liz and Miyabi will have to travel by carriage. Liz asked if Dart meant that they would be treated like luggage. He explained that they needed to double their speed and run for 8 hours every day, and Dart seemed skeptical that they could maintain such a pace. Miyabi understood that even with equipment that increases strength and endurance, he could not get through it. Liz, feeling humiliated, lowered her head and admitted that she could not do it. It was agreed that Liz would take responsibility for reconnaissance. On the 7th day, they set out on the road. But a large tree blocked their way, so Dart asked Miyabi for help, and she quickly removed the tree so they could continue. During lunch, Luana approached Miyabi and said that she thinks to revise their meal plan due to greater energy needs on colder nights. Liz told Miyabi that he was impressive, noting that everyone in Redcliffe already relied on him. He praised her reconnaissance skills. Recalling Laura's early compliments, her precise control over magic allowed her to accurately determine the number of enemies at a distance. When he spoke, Miyabi did not notice that Liz had fallen silent. Liz knew Miyabi's skill well because his talents impressed everyone he met. She couldn't think of anything that only she could do to feel special. The next chapter begins with Sid noticing Karen mumbling something, interrupting him because he seemed strange. Karen told Sid that he was training with his inventory. On the last day of repairs, Miyabi gave him a personalized training plan, and Karen tried to follow it step by step. Sid remembered the large amount of Miyabi's inventory, nodded in agreement, and wanted to join Miyabi. But Weiss reported that Miyabi had long since gone to the capital. Karen wished Miyabi all the best, wherever he was. Meanwhile, Miyabi was worried about Liz, who had seemed tired since yesterday, although she behaved normally. She noticed that traveling by carriage was less exhausting than walking all day. Miyabi tried to look at him as if it didn't bother her. But he saw that Dart's plan deeply upset her, although they knew this plan was necessary for everyone's safety. It still seemed unfair. Before departure, Liz spent the whole day in the library studying roots and information about monsters. She took her role as mission leader seriously. When problems arose, Tada seemed to take charge, and now Liz was upset because of him. Suddenly Dark called Liz and Miyabi, pointing to the impressive statue that marked the territorial boundaries. Behind it, reddish mountains led to the royal capital. Liz suddenly noticed danger and warned the group about the monster above the head on the pinata at 4 o'clock. 3 monsters were about 15 meters away, and Dart left them to Lizzie. She used an ice needle, and although Miyabi thought they had escaped it, the needles came back and killed the leader. Liz's strike on the leader was enough for the others to flee. Turning to the carriage, Chiffon asked if she had used the elemental spell of the ice needle, and Liz confirmed it. Chiffon found it strange. The ice needle usually turned the moisture in the surrounding air into sharp shards of ice that flew straight, but she was sure she saw the needle change its direction in the air. She asked how it happened, and Liz explained that it was a technique of finely tuned magical control. Liz could change entire needles from afar, a skill she had honed through prolonged practice. Chiffon was very excited. That Liz offered to teach her later, and she gladly agreed. Dart hoped the weather would be good for 5 nights while they rested. While Chiffon and Liz worked on the ice needle, Chiffon tried to direct her needles, but they kept hitting obstacles. Liz reassured her, saying that it was always difficult at first. She offered cookies that Yabai had made. Chiffon, although she had heard her father's stories, did not easily notice how exhausting the journey was during the trip. In rainy weather, Miyabi put up canopies over the paths and over the training places and provided them with boards and desks. He always found new ways to impress Chiffon. She wanted to know how Liz and Miyabi first met. Liz explained that they crossed paths when he got lost in the forest near Angela. She led him to the city, but he had no money. Their company formed quite naturally. Chiffon asked if Lisa did not yet have a group. Liz knew that it was unusual for a rear mage to work alone. He changed the subject and asked Chiffon how many training sessions she had in magic manipulation. Chiffon replied that she had trained little. Because we primarily studied advanced magic. Liz noticed that Chiffon had significant magical power and natural talent was decisive. And Liz admitted that she lacked this. To master magic, 3 components are needed: theory and methods of constructing magic, the ability to control magic to perform tasks, and magical power, the raw energy that fuels these abilities. For success, magical power was the most important. Theory and skills could be learned, but magical power was given from birth. Like muscles, it could be strengthened by exercise, but Liz, although she tried all training methods, did not progress over a year. She learned to use her limited power effectively and honed control. She sought ways to perform stronger abilities with less magic expenditure. She immersed herself in complex magical theory. But those who had natural talent went ahead and left her behind. Effort alone was not enough to overcome the gap. Reflecting on this, Liz began to doubt herself and feel insignificant. Knowing that complaints would not help, she focused on training. She asked Yuffin to show her hand, explaining that magic comes from the palm. Liz could combine Ifan's magic with her own by asking her to remember this feeling for further practice. When Liz was explaining, Chiffon recalled that her father taught her the same way. Meanwhile, Miyabi knocked on his door and prepared to talk to Dart. Tyson replied that Dart had been arrested and suggested that it was about Liz. Invited Miyabi inside and offered Hago herbal tea. While drinking, Tyson asked how Liz was feeling. Miyabi said that Liz was noticeably upset, especially after the carriage ride. Tyson agreed and noted that Lizzie's movements were obvious. He asked if it was the problem with the carriage that Miyabi wanted to discuss with Dart, and added that there was little that could be done about it now. Miyabi explained that he was concerned about related issues. Redcliffe appointed Liz as the mission leader, but she felt that her authority was being undermined. He supported Redcliffe's plan, but doubted whether Liz would be allowed to handle the matter as intended. Asked Tyson if Liz is less experienced than they are. Miyabi saw that Tyson was crying. Tyson said he thought he was ready, but when he saw Liz grown up, it deeply affected him. Apologizing for his inattention, he regretted that bringing this up with Dart now would only make the situation worse. He asked Miyabi not to interfere in this matter. Tyson asked Miyabi to gather people from Redcliffe and make sure Liz was not left alone. Miyabi gladly accepted this duty because it aligned with his goals. Seeing his dedication, Tyson teared up again. In 2 days, on their 10th day, the story continues. Miyabi knew that Tyson had not forgotten their conversation and was probably waiting for the right moment. Suddenly, Liz told Miyabi that they had arrived. Confused, he raised his head at her gesture, realizing that they were in the Valley of Dragons. Miyabi was surprised when Liz said that these dragons were peaceful and lived alongside humans. They noticed that the nesting season had come. When dragons become territorial and aggressive, it happens only along the road to the breeding sites, which had been closed for months. Alicia asked what to do, and Dart said it was better to find a detour. The nearest detour went around the mountain and came out on the highway from the other side, adding another 4 to 5 days to their journey. While Alicia and Dart argued, Liz suggested another option, planning to use Miyabi's skills to shorten the path. Soon they were already navigating the cave and moving quickly. They came across a dead end in the cave, a waterfall, and there was no further path. Miyabi suggested going back and digging from a different angle. Moving, he sensed danger and looked up just at the moment when a huge slime descended and almost hit him. Nell quickly cut through the slime and saved Miyabi. They quickly raised their defense and looked for other enemies. Liz was stunned. She couldn't believe they had already checked the cracks in the rocks. Something appears and soon they realize. They were in a nest covered with slime. Overcoming the initial shock, Miyabi began to think clearly, noticing that it was worse than their underground fight. The water delayed them, and they did not know what was hiding beneath its surface. Null cut the slugs one by one. She ordered the group to find a way out. Liz searched but did not find an exit. Then Null told her to create one. They praised her talent, so attacks by others on the slimes became unnecessary. Slime remonsters that dissolve flesh and bones with their unique method of attack. Slimes move slowly, their core in the center is a weak spot, one or two were harmless. But in large numbers in an enclosed space, they were dangerous. The cart offered no protection. Slimes seeped through cracks in the wood, so defending it in such a tight space would be difficult. Liz hesitated, not knowing what to do next. She was overcome with guilt when she suggested the route through the mountains. So consumed by remorse, she missed the slime attack, and Dart sacrificed his hand to protect her. Dark remained calm, trusting Laura's skills. Laura rudely told him to shut up and focused on her spell. She creates a healing circle, and Dart's Armon immediately began to heal. Acid damage disappeared within seconds, but mass healing magic required enormous magical power. Liz acknowledged Laura's mastery of elven magic, but refused to remain passive. Although Laura could heal wounds, Liz felt responsible for Dart's injuries. She is determined to prove her worth. She prepared an ice needle to strike the slimes before they got close. Dart unleashed his power, and the ground rose up. Liz, seeing his A-level power, felt useless because she could not help in any way. When Dart's power subsided, Miyabi saw that all the slimes were destroyed, and he asked if it was his turn. But the fight was not over yet. Laura suddenly asked Liz if she remembered her father's fighting style. Taking Liz by the hand, she shared her magic. Laura recalled how Liz's father said what magical power suited Liz. Stopping at magical guidance and intuitive, easily memorable technique for her. Laura explained that strong magic comes from precise control and deep knowledge. She noticed that slime creatures could slip through small cracks, asked how to escape if brute force did not work, believed Liz would find a way out, and Laura insisted that she consider what remains after discarding impossible options. Liz was already thinking about it, and if the cracks were a problem, they needed a ceiling, and there was a lot of water nearby, so she believed she could handle it. She asked herself why she hadn't thought of it earlier. She remembered how she taught Lady Chaffin. Applying the same principles during night practice, they adjusted the magical particles in the spell to change its path. Theoretically, from the start of the spell to its activation, the process could be fully controlled. So Liz could interfere with Laura's magic during the cast, but it required a much more complex approach. She put all her effort into it. Laura and Liz caused an instant freeze. What Dart showed was her father's technique, although Liz did not hear him. Miyabi was stunned to see that all the slimes were completely frozen from floor to ceiling. He noticed something and asked Dart what it was. Dart said it was light and suggested that the river here flowed outward. The passage was their escape route. Dart warned that moving on ice and snow would slow them down a lot. Considering Miyabi's abilities, digging a tunnel might be faster. Miyabi called everyone to look at his next move. He applied the stencil to the metal sheet and cut out the main shape. He made a light chamfer on the edge and polished the lower blade, and soaped, rinsed, and repeated for mass production. Then attached them to each person's shoes. Miyabi made skates, but admitted that he was not good at skating. Dart was confident he could lift it, but doubted the cart, so Miyabi added sled runners to make it work. Preparation was completed, and they were ready to set off. But they noticed that the jelly-like slimes do not dissolve in water. They quickly fled after exiting the tunnel. Liz Bodney apologized to Chiffon for what she had experienced. She reproached herself for suggesting a shorter route that exposed her to danger. Chiffon upset Liz even more by refusing to accept her apology. She emphasized that their priority was to reach the capital as quickly as possible. Liz made the best decision based on the available information. No one anticipated the road closure. The detour was inevitable, but Chiffon noted that it was Liz's quick reaction that helped overcome the obstacle. She smiled and reassured Liz that everything turned out well and there was no need to apologize. "Let's try apologizing once more." Seeing Liz's concern, Chiffon stopped her and emphasized that in practice, results matter most. Chiffon advised her not to dwell on every imagined mistake because perfectionism can be harmful. Liz realized that her pursuit of perfection had become a problem. Alicia was impressed by Chiffon's kindness. After Chiffon returned to her carriage, Dart and Laura, as always, teased Liz, impressed by her calmness. Watching Liz fight alongside Laura, they saw how much she had matured. Dart said it was time to speak up, hugged Liz, and added that they were missing a fourth member, and persistently urged her to consider joining Red Cliff. Meanwhile, the guildmaster carefully examined Miyabi. He contacted all guild branches in Angel, but found no records of anyone named Miyabi in Fortier. Almost all professions were regulated by guilds. At 12 years old, people began apprenticeships, and most registered in merchant, adventurer, or production guilds. The guild master reviewed all records of the three guilds, but found nothing. Only wealth, family heritage, or foreign origin remained without guild registration. Recalling the Duke's recent words, he wondered if Miyabi could be a spy. On the road again, Liz pondered Dart's proposal. Her worried expression caught Miyabi's attention, and when he asked why she had withdrawn, she said she needed some time to think. Miyabi was concerned and noted that the tunnel they had dug was nearby, so it was risky to take a break here. Liz replied that slimes, which love moisture, would not come out into the open on a sunny day. An awkward pause ensued until Miyabi asked if something was bothering her. Liz was surprised that he noticed it from her expression, but Miyabi said it was obvious. She hesitated, unsure if he wanted to listen. But Miyabi assured her that he was not forcing her to speak. When he began to walk away, Liz grabbed him by the shirt and insisted that he listen because it concerned him. Once settled, Liz explained that Redcliffe had invited her to join their party. Miyabi, shocked, asked what she replied. She explained that she asked for time to think. Redcliffe approached her when she first became an adventurer, but she refused. When she was 10, she thought it would interfere with their rank evaluation. Moreover, she wanted to choose her own path and become independent. Even now she doubted if she was worthy of them, but feared missing the chance for a title if she refused again. She had a strong internal conflict. Things got complicated because Redcliffe also invited Miyabi. Despite Miyabi's D-rank adventurer status, her skills correspond to a rank level, so the Redcliffes offer an excellent chance to get rich and gain recognition. After a short pause, Liz directly asked him which decision would be best. Miyagi said that he didn't care. He could craft anywhere, and ratings and money were not a priority for him. Embarrassed, Liz realized that she was the only one fixated on those goals, but Miyabi quickly explained that he was not criticizing her. He recalled how, before leaving, he told her that he wanted her to enjoy the adventure and feel comfortable, because her happiness was his happiness. The leak warns that any choice can bring regret. Hard times may make her wonder if another path would have been better. The only thing Miyabi truly regretted was that he stayed stuck in the past for too long, but the realization that the future depends on one's own choices pushed him forward. Whatever Liz decided, he would support her without regret. Liz laughed and jokingly said that Miyabi sounded like her father for a moment. More seriously, she thanked him and said she would think about it. Returning to the camp, Miyabi saw Alicia washing dishes. He tried to stop her, but Alicia insisted that cleaning was her duty. Miyabi insists on packing everything because open food can attract dangerous creatures. Just at the right moment, unexpected guests frightened the group. They looked harmless, and the old man stepped forward, apologized for the scare, and introduced himself as Dominic, the leader of the Brando Monastery. A real nomadic performance. Because of the smell of food, they mistook the camp for a mountain restaurant. Dominic thought that the Miyabi people were her guards. And Noble Dharma introduced himself, which surprised Dominic. A fan of Redcliffe, who admired their monster stampede efforts. Overwhelmed with emotions, Dominic almost fell, but Dirt caught him and asked if he was okay, and Dominic, still excited, said it was just his emotions. Dominic said that his squad was traveling from the target territory to perform in Angeli. Heavy rains delayed them, ruined their supplies, and left them without food for several days. In despair, they asked for some provisions to replenish supplies in the village at the foot of Dragon Valley. Darden told them that Dragon Valley was closed due to the wild animal breeding season. He suggested a detour. Add 4 or 5 days to their trip. When Dart rejoined the group, Liz suggested escorting the artists back along their route, but Dart firmly refused. He explained that even he himself could not simultaneously keep track of so many people. Their mission was the top priority. Laura checked the food supplies and noticed that after the escort's needs, they still had a week's reserve. If there are more than 20 people in the squad, this will not be enough. Thanks to the ability to expand storage, Miyabi suggested giving all their food, but it would spoil without proper storage, and he recalled the dried meat of the Black Hawk, which was insufficient. Dart asked Miyabi to unpack their large bags, showing wheels of cheese and nuts, which are then offered to the artists. Chiffon had been silent until now, and now asked to start patrolling while the squad rested. While they ate, Miyabi realized that Dart had packed extra supplies in case he could not keep up. This made Miyabi more favorable towards joining the Redcliffe, and for Liz, joining the guild was a dream that would quickly elevate her to rank A, and traveling together would also be pleasant. The performers, very grateful, left after thanking several times. Miyabi promised never to let Liz be sad again. That evening, Tyson accused Dart of inviting Liz and Miyabi because he thought they had agreed to wait until the end of the mission. Dart admitted that Miyabi had pushed him to do this. It was noted that despite Miyabi's clumsiness, he was useful in the support class role. Laura emphasized that they needed Liz, who, although she was rear guard, felt alienated. Miyabi proved that he was capable, and Dart, who had leadership experience in noble families, was sure that both Liz and Miyabi were suitable for Redcliffe. After spending time with them, Tyson reconsidered his position. He was no longer sure that joining Redcliffe was the best for Liz. Dart asked what had happened. Tyson explained that 8 years ago it started with Liz. At least they wanted her to live a joyful life. Since then, they promised to do everything to make her happy. They watched Liz closely when Tyson asked if they had noticed it. He always thought that joining Redcliffe was Liz's dream. But when it was just the three of them with Liz, she did not smile. They tried to object, but when Tyson asked if they had seen her smile during the trip, they stopped to think, and Dart recalled every moment with Liz, realizing he had not noticed her expressions. The thought that Liz was unhappy upset him greatly and kept him from sleeping. The next day, he told himself that Tyson was exaggerating. Seeing Liz smile at Miyabi, he thought he had disproved Tyson's fears. But when Liz noticed Dart, her smile disappeared, and she wondered why he got up so early. In the next scene, Dart focused on the mission. They were in good shape, and only 20 kilometers remained to the next stop. He asked Miyabi what he was doing. Miyabi was sewing a coat to avoid freezing in the cool weather. When Miyabi stopped, they soon asked for a break. He brought pillows with fleece lining. He noticed that Chifona had been called since they entered the mountains. Mel's stare scared him from the carriage window. Dart heard the noise and saw him laughing loudly with Miyabi. Tyson noticed Liz's bright smile. Dart, wanting to show that he also cared, gave her his scarf, but it did not please her. Liz scolded him for not giving it to Lori, who was not dressed well enough. She even asked them to stop their antics a little, because it would be a personal favor to her. Dart told himself that it was just a coincidence, remembering Liz as a cheerful girl. As they walked further, snow began to fall, and they had to stop. Miyabi asked for a minute to prepare, but Dart insisted that they could still move. The snow would probably fall all night, so it was better to move now before they had to dig themselves out. If they walked for another 3 hours, they would reach the opposite edge of the cliff near the capital, where the snow seemed lighter. For safety and progress, the land urged them to keep going. But Liz intervened. She insisted that they spend the night in the camp. Running in the cold quickly exhausted them due to the slippery road, poor visibility, approaching darkness, and the threat of monsters, so continuing was dangerous. Dart does not like last-minute changes to plans, and they worried that because of the wait, their trip the same distance would take twice as long. Although he knew he had to give in, the ground still pressed. Liz agreed with his logic, but said they had Miyabi. On the 12th day, she reminded Dart that Miyabi could dig a tunnel through stone, so snowdrifts would not stop her. When the snow is cleared, they will be able to walk on flat terrain. Miyabi will have to clear the way, so the pace will slow, but by the end of the day, they will still reach the capital. Liz asked if she had made the right decision. Dard confirmed this to her, noting her balanced decision, steady progress, and energy conservation. He praised it and said that it was objectively the best choice. Liz laughed truly happily with Dart for the first time. Dart thought that it was either his praise or her need for recognition. Later, together with Tyson and Laura Dart, he started talking. Rise was the heart of Red Rock. Lone Wolf united Laura, who hung out with bad company, and Tyson, who blossomed late. When Rise died, Liz became his legacy. Dart felt foolish when he realized that all along, he only wanted to see her smile. Looking at her, he somehow did not notice the truth. He wanted to get together with friends and discuss how to properly take care of her. In the next scene, Mel asked for another serving of food. Shows that she likes the Black Orch barbecue sandwich with brisket. Liz explained that beastfolk need more food due to their greater muscle mass, and her metabolism burned calories quickly, so she had to eat faster. After the conversation, Miyabi thought that Tyson had discussed it with the group, but he was not sure of the exact words. But whatever they said, Dart seemed calmer after that snowy day. Their journey was long and exhausting, but finally, on the 14th day of their mission, they saw the royal capital. That same day, Liz felt confused and uncertain about the next steps. Miyabi nearby asked if she was still hesitating about the matter with the red cliff. Liz admitted that it made her nervous, but the Duke said he also wanted to show how valuable she was. Miyabi, however, believed that the evaluation was subjective and ultimately decided by the dukes. Overall, he thought the group performed wonderfully. Liz, however, thought that she had not helped with anything useful during the trip and cast a sharp look at Miyabi, showing that she disapproved of his behavior. Miyabi objected that he had been there the whole time and that she had done a lot, and they arrived on time only thanks to her suggestion. Liz replied that he would have come up with the same idea in 5 minutes. He praised her plan to dig a tunnel through the mountains, which would have saved them time, but she noted that it would lead to a slime attack, and irritated Miyabi told her to just accept the compliment. She admitted that she often gave herself the same advice. Miyabi was stunned to find herself doubting again and thought that maybe her mind always worked that way. Looking back, he realized there were several warning signs and how she talked about herself. Suddenly, Liz asked if it was bad to have ambitions. Lady Chiffon warned that obsessing over flaws in the pursuit of perfection can be toxic. But Liz was not like that. She just set high standards for herself and began to doubt whether it was wrong. A direct answer from Miyabi was sufficient. He explained that what worried him most was how seriously she took everything. He insisted that she listen without arguing. He said she was too critical of herself, and noticing her surprise, tried a different approach. He asked her to say what she was good at. She replied that she studied well because. The fact that she liked it quickly did not mean she was skilled. Miyabi interrupted and pointed out that she was doing it again. He put on his glasses and began to explain what self-esteem is. He told her to prepare for another lesson. She nervously said she couldn't think of anything. He reassured her, telling her not to be afraid, because the love was so strong that it could move mountains. He quietly said that he knows a reliable person. He led her to his place to examine her hand, said that she is only beginning the path of self-discovery, but noted that she always observes carefully and plans her surroundings thoroughly. Then Miyabi made her bravely say that she likes to learn. Despite the lesson, Liz was very embarrassed. The next day, Chiffon said that she liked the previous night. Confused, Liz found out that their loud conversation and all that chaos were overheard in their courtroom. But Chiffon noticed that Liz looked much happier. On the 15th day, they reached the royal capital. 2 weeks had passed since they escorted Angoline, and they arrived safely thanks to their tireless efforts. Schiff thanked everyone for their dedication to the escort mission. After the speech, Alicia told her that chambers had been prepared for her if she wanted to rest. She noticed that Chiffon had not moved from her place. Meanwhile, Redcliffe stopped, and Liz and Dart impatiently awaited her decision. Liz said that she had been deeply thinking over the last few days about what she truly wants and how she wants to live. She told Laura that she taught her to fight like her father and that she could never repay her for that. She never imagined she could accomplish such a feat. When they cast that complex spell together, she felt genuine joy. But in her imagination remained an image. She stands next to Laura and takes her father's place. She was not sure she could handle it. She realized she was acting childishly and stubbornly, but refused to be a substitute for her father and chose her own path. Using her skills and magic, she wanted them to be proud of her achievements, holding Miyazaki's hand. She said that they would not join Red Cliff. Embarrassed, Miyabi warned her that such actions could cause even more misunderstandings. Dart and the others calmly accepted Liz's choice, as they had expected, and he suggested taking care of the report for the Adventurers Guild, then quietly left. Dart also advised them not to worry about decorating the details, because their story would likely be cross-checked with Lady Chiffon's report. Regarding their ability to meet the noble's demands, the final decision belonged to Duke Baldini. Liz asked if he would try to dissuade her, but he saw no need for that. Because Miyabi and Liz made an excellent team, Laura couldn't help but say that they still needed a Vanguard member, so Liz should reconsider her decision. They said goodbye and started walking, Liz overcoming her surprise with tears in her eyes, saying farewell to Chiffon, approaching her as the Red Cliff remained behind. She noted that she had not met Red Cliff before, so it was a pleasant change. She noted that the upbringing seemed difficult and quietly laughed. She asked if they returned to Angela immediately, and Liz replied that they would stay in the city longer to see more, as it was a rare opportunity. The capital is rarely visited, so they planned to make the most of it. Chiffon asked them for a small favor. Meanwhile, the guildmaster informed Duke Baldini that all attempts to find the adventurer Miyabi had completely failed. He said he checked all government records and questioned Miyabi's known contacts from the period before his arrival in the city, but found no evidence of his existence. Baldini asked the guild master for his opinion. The guild master said that craftsmen rarely join the adventurers guild and usually choose the manufacturing guild. If Miyabi was just filling a gap in support roles, it would not be a problem. His identity remained a complete mystery, and he worked in the Lord's residence without permission. The evidence was weak. But in the worst case, he could turn out to be a foreign spy. In response to this serious suggestion, Duke Baldini laughed and teased him. He noted that the guild master's textbook answer lacked depth. He did not take the masterwise point of view into account. If the goal was espionage in the Duke's house, using someone as well known as Master Weiss was logical. Weiss valued sincerity and diligence above all. Only those who sincerely admired the craft received WISES approval. When Weiss first met Miyabi, he warmly and without hesitation praised him. Moreover, if the goal was to gather intelligence about the Duke's court, pretending to be a craftsman was pointless. Georgie was not the only high-ranking official who despised craftsmen, and among aristocrats this prejudice was stronger. As long as the man did not pose a threat, Baldini did not reject him. Progress requires risk, otherwise opportunities will be wasted. He was primarily interested in the source of Miyabi's power and paid little attention to other details. The guild master was stunned that Baldi was interested only in the origin of Miyabi's abilities. Nothing else mattered. The guild mistress did her best, but realized that Liz was only a tool for the Duke's plans. He asked if Bolding had found the answer she saw. Baldini admitted that he had not, but it did not matter, because his next steps were already planned. In the next scene, Chiffon asked Alicia to get her diary from the luggage because she wanted to make an entry. Holsha noted that they had just arrived after a long trip and suggested resting, but since it was only writing, it seemed fine. Alicia still insisted that she rest, noting that there might be too many tasks too early, and she should not go under pressure if she was not ready. Chiffon replied that not everyone has the endurance of a traveler. She then asked if Alicia was worried that Liz would be offended. Alicia explained that as a professional, her personal feelings did not matter. Her only priority was Chiffon's health and well-being, and Chiffon confirmed this, assuring her that she would rest well, and invited Alicia to join them tomorrow if she wanted. Alicia left the room because she often needed to write in the diary. Despite her fears, she could not disobey a direct order. Since the role of a maid was to serve, walking down the corridor she saw her brother and assured him that she was fine. Meanwhile, Liz was telling Miyabi that they had not yet had time to say goodbye to Mel. Miyabi said that Mel left during their conversation. Liz wanted to apologize for causing her trouble, but did not have time. Miyabi noted that he even left her for the night shift. He also wanted you to at least thank her for all the help. Liz said she hoped they could all celebrate together. Miyabi realized that although the mission was completed, they never threw a wrap party. He had an idea and was already about to act, but Liz stopped him. She felt embarrassed that he thought to call everyone back after her emotional outburst. He explained that he did not intend that, but Liz still did not let him continue. Then he asked if they could find Mel. Liz came up with a plan to make a simple bait, which she thought would work. Miyabi doubted it would succeed. But it worked instantly. After that, Nell, Liz, and Miyabi started drinking to celebrate the successful escort mission. Seeing the dishes, Nell asked if she could take everything, and when Miyabi said yes, she grabbed their portions. Then they whispered to Liz, doubting whether it was wise to hoard since the celebration had just begun. While Miyabi entertained Mel, Liz wondered why he was grinning like a cunning villain. He was delivering a monologue while eating her food. Nell said the place was really nice. Miyabi explained that they chose a place that they thought she would like. She asked why. And Liz said that she had to go through a lot because of them, especially because of the situation with the Red Cliff, and wanted to thank her for the support. Now she understood and was not against it at all. Liz noticed that Mel had always liked cute things since they met. Nell insisted that she chose this place because she liked it too, but Liz joked that she had long outgrown that phase. Miyabi smiled at their jokes and noticed that it seemed they had a long history. Liz and Mel met near Weiss's forge. This is a list of prizes to see a girl even smaller than her who asks for a knife in the shop. When she was told that nothing is given for free, Liz eventually sold that knife. Miyabi thought that Mel probably went through many hardships, but Mel corrected him. They said that it was normal for them when she was kicked out of the family. He asked if they could be called childhood friends, but Liz explained that even after they became adventurers, they actually spent little time together, and she quickly got a higher rank than Mel. Now they will receive invitations from nobles and aristocrats, and their tasks came through the usual procedures. Miyabi impatiently asked if swordsmen of Nell's level could do such things, but Nell was an exception. Despite their fame, Red Cliff was also hired through the guild. Miyabi recalled Laura's remark that a vanguard was needed, and realized that Mel was the vanguard. Both rejoiced and asked if she was affiliated with any party. And when she said no, Miyabi took her by the hand and joining them asked. Now she looked at their delighted faces. She asked if she would be fed when she joined. When they confirmed they would provide food and take orders together in her old hut. She said she did not hate them, but valued the right to decide for herself where to rest, play, and live freely, even until death. She set such conditions for her life and doubted they would fit their plans. At first Miyabi was surprised that he said he understood. He admitted that he got too carried away, imagining how wonderful it would be if she joined. It reminded her of old comrades from the party, and she smiled at them. After lunch, Liz and Miyabi went to meet Chiffin, but noticed Mel following them. Miyabi said he thought she was going home. Mel replied she would go home when she wanted. Chiffin was surprised to see Mel with them. Miyabi was not sure if Chiffin would be comfortable, but she saw no problem with it. Exploring the city is much more pleasant in good company. After agreeing on the details, Skiffin announced that for today's excursion she believes the more people, the better. Liz and Miyabi were surprised and could not understand how a tour could be considered a business trip. Chiffin explained that this became possible thanks to Liz, and she wanted to thank her. Liz looked embarrassed. Therefore, Chiffon reminded her of everything she had done for her during their journey. She always wanted to explore the city but never had time, so this became a perfect opportunity for everyone. Hearing this, they could not object. Their first stop was at the Church of St. Stella, a place important to Liz and Miyabi. When they entered, Chiffin explained that this was a temple dedicated to the mother of all gods in the kingdom of Foryeth, and that it was a must-see in the capital. Miyabi was so impressed by the temple's grandeur that he behaved strangely, and Liz warned him. Miyabi then noticed people busy with some activity and asked Liz about it, and Liz explained that it was an assessment session. When he admitted that he did not understand grading, she asked if he knew that classes could be divided not only into combat and production categories. Skills such as inventory management could indicate which type a person belonged to. With subsequent units that provided more detailed classifications, these finer distinctions were harder to determine, which required special or natural magic, where the stone reacted to each person to determine their class, like a litmus test, and Liz said she did not need such a procedure. Because class magic was inherited from the parents. The child of a swordsman grew up to be a swordsman. The child of a wizard grew up to be a wizard. Such deviations were extremely rare, and once a person became old enough to remember, they naturally acquired skills and instinctively knew how to use them. To prepare, parents requested evaluations in advance to find out which family line would prevail. Tourists also liked to receive a certificate with the genuine seal of the church as a souvenir. Liz did not know this and began to consider herself just a simple village girl. Miyabadi thought the certificate would be a cool thing, but Liz did not allow him to spend money on it. Chiffon intervened and offered to cover the expenses as a small gift, recalling the words of the father, and asked Miyabi if he was okay being the only one without an evaluation. Before the evaluation began, the church glowed with bright light over the infant during the ritual, and the senior priest noted that crimson hue indicated a future swordsman with a bright and successful fate. The priest added that such immense power in a newborn was rare. Miyabi noticed that the child's parents seemed delighted, and the priest explained that strong magical abilities, especially in the combat class, guarantee a successful and fulfilling life. Next came the evaluations of Liz and Miyavis. They considered it a divine gift from the 12 goddesses. After praying for guidance for Liz, they instructed her to place her hand on the stone. When Liz said she could not match the abilities of the infant, the priest declared that the mysterious purple glow marked her as a sorceress. This made Liz curious about how strong Miyabi's magic was, and she was soon to find out when Miyabi placed his hand on the stone. Liz expected him to have strong magic. The light was so bright that it blinded everyone nearby for a moment, leaving Miyabi and the others confused about what had happened. The worried priest stated that magical readings of such a level had never been recorded before, and when asked about the class, the dazzling light that was supposed to clarify it obscured the designation. They were ordered again to have Miyabi touch the stone, and this time the priest noticed something that shocked everyone. Miyabi was declared a craftsman, a class they considered a disappointment given his great magical potential, and the priest noticed their dissatisfaction. He assured them that no class was worse than others, asked them to collect the certificate downstairs, and blessed them as they left. Miyabi was not satisfied with the result. But Liz caused even more surprise and irritation. When he tried to speak, Liz hit him, and Chiffon tried to ease the tension. Chiffon asked Mel to make an assessment, but Mel refused. Meanwhile, Alicia was focused on the strange light they saw. From the beginning of the journey, something about Miyabi seemed off. And she wondered if this light explained why Chiffon joined them today, as they were leaving. The priest standing on the church steps noticed that, when the Baldini family sent a messenger ahead, it meant that something extraordinary was coming soon. During 50 years of assessments, the senior priest had never seen a magical presence of such magnitude, surpassing even newborns of royal blood. Another priest, still stunned by the event, asked what the elder thought would happen next. The elder, usually insightful, admitted he did not know, his voice taking on a rare uncertainty. He confessed that he did not know, his voice was unusually uncertain, and it was nothing like anything he had ever encountered. Meanwhile, Miyabi looks at the sea and thinks about the assessment, no longer paying attention to strange things, but it still overwhelms him. He loved doing everything he imagined. He put great effort into mastering this world and believed he had become quite skilled. It was pleasing that his efforts were appreciated. While he was lost in thought, Liz approached and noticed the beauty of the ocean. She was seeing it for the first time and asked when he first saw it. Miyabi said he saw it in childhood, then wondered if it was a unique experience related to the capital. He decided to change the subject. I feel uncomfortable deceiving Liz. She said that 8 years ago this district was devastated by a crowd of monsters. But now people looked happy. Chiffon joined them and asked Liz if she expected the traces of destruction in the city to be noticeable. The capital was far from Angolan, but they received reports describing the scale of the destruction. Liz was very interested. Chiffon explained that without the magical shields of the court mage, the damage would have been catastrophic. These mages, who embody wisdom and strength, serve the royal family and protect the city, port, and surrounding lands with advanced magic. Tragically, those who lived beyond the outer wall near the Great Bridge suffered the most. They wanted to expand the city center, but even after reconstruction, Chiffon heard that progress had stalled. She regretted that outside the main road, the surrounding slums had weak security and advised being careful if they went there. Miyabi asked Liz if the outer wall was the place where they camped yesterday. Their conversation was interrupted by a woman loudly scolding another for opening a shop. She declared that the patrol race market was intended for prestigious goods, served by noble servants, and only elite products should be sold there. The dispute concerned the goods of the poor woman. That woman said she paid for the spot just like her accuser. Miyabi felt that the capital turned out to be less safe than she expected. Liz could not remain silent. A man demanded to release the poor woman, and the woman who was shouting asked who Liz was. Liz gave her a single chance to let it go and explained that adults can talk calmly without violence, but the woman misunderstood and thought Liz was threatening her. Miyabi panicked, but Chiffon remained calm and asked for the list. Just as the big man was about to hit Liz, Alicia became a formidable force. Alicia saved Liz and defeated the man, who was significantly bigger than the others, and Chiffon Kanlai admitted that Alicia was her personal knight. When the aggressive woman demanded answers, Chiffon praised her vegetables. Her elegance, sophistication, and gentle voice convinced the woman that she was the daughter of a high-ranking nobleman. Her presence there was questioned. One vendor criticized another's prices. Chiffon, in a phase, said she preferred the decoration of this vendor over the neighboring one, where food was served as decoration, and noted her refined taste. The guards came and took away the aggressive woman. Liz thanked Alicia for the rescue and admired her strength. Alicia said she did not do it for Liz. The poor woman thanked Liz for protecting her, then asked Chiffon if she was sure she would buy her goods. She admitted that they were not suitable for the noble's table. Chiffon gave 2 reasons for her choice. She was intrigued by the situation, and at the same time felt that this carrot had a different smell than usual. The woman was delighted, and noticed, explaining that her village was located halfway up the mountains. They grew sweet-tasting fruits, despite their simple appearance. Miyabi recognized them as snow carrots. Noting that carrots grown under thick snow are sweeter, maybe it is the same here. They were surprised because only rain was falling. He explained that the mountains had been covered with snow since autumn. Schiff wondered if such crops could grow in the climate of Angolan. Miyabi, not understanding farming, admitted that he knew nothing, and he overheard Angolan. She said that her daughter moved there for an internship. It was nice to meet them by chance. Miyabi assured her that her daughter was probably feeling well in Angolan. After buying the carrots, he asked Chiffon if she was sure it was not a problem. Chiffon admitted that maybe she had overdone it with the vegetables. because it could have been too much even for their cooks, and suddenly an idea came to her mind. She said she knew a place where many people needed vegetables, and it was on the way home. Miyabi and Liz were worried that she meant the royal palace, and their fears were confirmed when they entered that magnificent building. The boy noticed them as they were entering. In the next scene, Skiffin was thinking about Alicia, who played the role of the maid perfectly, although she had a warm, open heart that Skiffin always found easy to read. Writing in her diary, she recalled her father's words that Miyabi's skills were too developed for a simple craftsman, and he asked her to check whether the craftsman was really his class or something greater. She noticed her father's unusual caution. She thought about adding more to the diary, but decided to stop there for now. She knew a lot thanks to her father, but some things could not be taught. After all, she was independent and different from him. Her actions on his behalf were also influenced by her own desires when they entered the royal palace. A soldier stopped them and explained that although they were grateful for her vegetables, it was inappropriate for a woman of her status to carry them to the kitchen herself. Liz agreed that he was right, but noted that the quantity was too large for an ordinary servant to handle. During their conversation, the boy who was watching approached, happy to see Chiffon. When Hadzi rushed to hug her, she stepped aside and he stumbled. Miyabi and Liz were embarrassed, standing in the royal palace and watching how this guy behaved so casually with the duke's daughter. Chiffon introduced him as Crest Fourchette, her fiancé and the third prince of Fourchette, and surprised, they processed what they heard and went inside. Miyabi thought that the time at the duke's estate had prepared him for luxury, but the palace still impressed him. He was also interested in the relationship between Crest and Chiffon. Crest apologized and said that if he had known about her arrival, he would have prepared sweets from her favorite confectionery. Watching their tenderness, Miyabi did not know how to react to their behavior. Liz, heavily sweating, interrupted and asked if they were really allowed to be here. Crest apologized for ignoring the guests and asked Chiffon to introduce them. She introduced Liz, Miyabi, and Mel, and explained that they had safely accompanied her from Angolan. Crest was impressed and noted that they seemed to be close in age to Chiffon. He inquired about their previous conversation with the guard. Miyabi nervously explained that they had brought carrots as a gift, but their attempt to get to the kitchens of Set the Staff Chiffon called a waste of human effort, because the carrots in Miyabi's inventory weighed nothing. Crest asked if Miyabi had worked in production. Then he remembered that he was an adventurer and chose the combat class. Miyabi explained that he was a craftsman and usually took on support roles. The astonishment of Crest revealed that he was also a craftsman. Miyabi was surprised that the prince was a craftsman. Jeff laughed and asked why it was strange to find craftsmen among kings. They insisted on an explanation, and she said it was too delicate a topic to bring up just like that, but she and Cress agreed. Liz asked if this was mentioned during their conversation in the cathedral. Chiffon explained that magical affinity is hereditary, so parent and child classes rarely surprised. Miyabi recalled that she said something similar. Chiffon said that this ability means being able to lead during a national crisis and prevent bloodshed. The principle of their first king, and this philosophy made the noble families prefer the warrior classes, with the class determined in advance, whether swordsman or mage. So she understood their surprise. Miyabi thought that if it was true, then the question arises how the prince ended up as a craftsman. He hesitated to talk about it, afraid they might find out too much and suffer because of it, but Cress was not that kind of person. He said that he did not hide his class, but also did not advertise it, noting with a trembling hand that Miyabi and Liz would understand the condemnation the tavern masters faced in noble circles. Chiffon asked Miyabi if he still had the pillow he made for her in the mountains, and Miyabi immediately took it out. Chiffon showed this to Crest. Crest was impressed by the quality of the fabric and its warmth. Miyabi boasted that he had imbued it with fiery charms. Crest was very impressed by the talents of the crafters. Chiffon quickly inquired whether Crest would like to create items, as Miyabi did. Crest admitted that although Miyabi's skills were impressive, he himself had never used his crafting abilities. He thought he could match Miyabi. Chiffon interrupted him and seriously insisted that he promise her to stop being so hard on himself. Seeing her sincere look, Crest apologized and promised. Miyabi again realized that society treated crafters poorly. This perception was false. Craftsmanship is not about status, it is about satisfaction, available to anyone who tries. Miyabi gently suggested Crest start small and make a gift for Chiffon. Recently he realized that crafting is most enjoyable when done for a loved one, so he advised making something for his fiancée. He reminded Crest that he had previously wanted to make her happy. Crest looked at Chiffon. and they decided to craft a small lap blanket. He noticed that her legs got cold during your last picnic after choosing the project. Miyabi wanted to start immediately, but later Miyabi noticed the level of Crest's crafting skills. Despite Crest's efforts, his blanket kept falling apart. Crest was impressed by the exceptional quality of Miyabi's blanket. It shone and felt like royal linen to the touch. Moreover, the embroidery was very intricate. Miyabi felt he had to apologize for Crest's reaction. He thought it was only necessary to improve basic skills, but even at the first level, it was strange to see such a shapeless mess. Lacking enough information to identify the problem, Miyabi asked Crest what kinds of handicrafts he could do. Crest didn't even know what that was, so Miyabi started from scratch. Craftsmen have 3 special skills: item making, handicrafts, and cooking. He advised Crest that improving skills requires prolonged practice, so Crest began training handicrafts that same day, and after an hour, disappointed, asked Miyabi. Handicrafts turned out to be so difficult that his blanket was full of faulty stitches. He could easily channel magic into threads, but it was hard for him to imagine each stitch while trying to add magic. He felt mentally overwhelmed. Miyabi tried to calm him and said they could manually sew the missing stitches, but fell silent upon seeing Crest crying. Crest said that he would never give Chiffon such a bad job. When he was crying, Chiffon came up and took his hand, and insisted that he treat his precious blanket more carefully. She explained that she never demanded things of royal quality. She was not bothered by flaws, because for her the important things were the thought and care he put in, and she wanted the very first thing he made with his own hands. Moved by her sincere words, Crest could not stop sobbing. By the end of the day, Crest made a lap blanket and gave it to Chiffon. When Miyabi was about to return to her room, Crest apologized for showing his vulnerability, but admitted that he liked it. He asked to meet again tomorrow to learn more about the craft, and Miyabi gladly agreed to help and was pleased that Crest accepted it willingly. Crest asked him not to be formal and to call him by his name. Meanwhile, Alicia watched as Chiffon talked with the group. A rare moment when Chiffon could set aside the duties of a duke's daughter and spend time with those she cared about. Alicia liked seeing Chiffon like this more. She was surprised when they were allowed to enter the royal palace. The prince was the shining center of Chiffon's heart, and Alicia was glad to have a pleasant rest. In the end, she was glad she took the adventurers with her. At the end of the day, it seemed to her that they would never cross paths again. She thanked Schiff and everyone who joined. She apologized for getting carried away and taking more time than planned, and asked where it would be best to drop them off for the night. They said they were discussing finding a hotel. Chiffon panicked at first, but then suggested an idea. She invited them to go with her if they had no other plans. Even Alicia was stunned by this offer. As Chiffon explained, it made sense, and Liz asked why she went to such lengths because of your adventures. Chiffon sincerely asked them to accompany her to the Royal Academy, and Alicia only wondered what caused this decision. In the next scene, their mission report was submitted to the Adventurers Guild. On the street, Alina saw that the guild master was smoking. He said he just needed a break. She thought it was because of the stress from an important noble position. He had been acting strangely since he asked her to investigate Miyabi. The guild master noticed Alina's expression and asked what she was thinking about. She replied that she had a full mission report. She confirmed that everything was correct and suggested sending it to the Duke's estate, but he stopped her. He took the report and insisted that he brought it himself, and Helena noticed that it was the first time she saw a boss personally handling a routine report, but he remained silent. Helen Ortiz said that if he was so bored, he could join them for lunch. At the Royal Academy, Chiffon showed Miyabi and Liz their rest rooms. While their travel clothes were being washed, they were given simple dinners. Everyone at the Royal Academy felt tense. But Chiffon was simply happy. Then she asked Liz to practice precise magic control after dinner. Alicia was stunned. She went to her room, irritated that she still had to treat them as honored guests. She did not mind B-level projects and Miyabi, but she was furious that Liz got a leadership position through nepotism without the necessary qualifications. The more she thought about Liz's actions, the angrier she became, considering her unfit for adventures and offended that Skiffins had rejected her. Meanwhile, no one knocked on Miyabi's door. Noticing that they were alone in the rooms, Miyab thought she was bored from seeking company, but denied it. Nell took out her plush toy kitty Gawatero and asked Miyabi to sew clothes for it. Because it was a teddy bear, Miyabi gladly agreed to help but wanted to know why Nell was asking right now. She said she had seen puppies in clothes in Chiffon's room. Miyabi drew several sketches, and they would choose the best one. He sewed clothes for the soft toy. When he was preparing for Kot, he asked if he could make more clothes. He showed her his skills screen and explained that there were only a few ready-made recipes for clothes and plush toys. He had various crafting skills, but without a recipe, his capabilities were limited, and a low skill level could lead to mistakes. When he put her to sleep, he explained that handmade item creation registers it as a recipe and allows him to reproduce it infinitely, and Null fainted during his explanation. But he was still thinking about his skills. He transferred the recipe library and skill levels from Dreamworld and had previously reached the maximum level. The real problem was the lack of recipes. He began to think that the entry barriers to crafting classes were unbalanced. Especially after the difficulties with Cressay, he decided that now was not the time to deal with emotions. Liz was exhausted. He noticed that even in this secondary residence, there was a huge training hall that gave an insight into elite life. So much had happened. Assessment in her class, meeting at prints and events far from her usual life. All because Chiffon asked them to stay longer. She began to think about the prince, but decided to rest, as it was already late for deep thoughts. The next morning, Miyabi woke up cheerful and happy, but Liz did not share his mood at all. In panic, she asked how he was resting on the folding bed in his room. He replied that it was a bit firmer than he was used to, but not bad. Liz was surprised by this. Insisting that the cats in the Duke's villa must be custom-made for luxury, she pointed to several tons as proof, with a fluff content 15 times greater than in cotton. The smoothness of the cotton and the thickness of the quilt show high craftsmanship. She could not understand why both of them lacked coziness. Miyabi waited patiently. Then he scolded her for rudeness and said that when you are invited as a guest, you should not complain about the mattress, and Liz blamed Miyabi. Their argument continued while Mal rested on the roof. After their trivial quarrel, it was time to set off. Miyabi went to give a lesson to Cress, and Chiffon was glad that they had spent the night, regretting that they could not stay longer, and Liz thought about Chiffon's kindness. She took Miyabi to the Cress estate and left him there, and that evening returned to pick him up. Entering the estate, Crest, surrounded by 2 men, greeted him. Miyabi noticed the increased security today. Crest explained that he had argued with his guards yesterday because they had run out of patience. Crest said he had something to show Miyabi that morning. He led him to a room with materials for handicrafts. He asked the staff to gather supplies for the lesson and leave them in his room so they could be used immediately. Miyabi was stunned by the materials and even more surprised that they were in Crescent's personal space. Crest said that Chiffon was very happy with his gift, but he still wanted to make something much more beautiful for the woman he loved. Miyabi blushed because of Cress's devotion to Chiffon. Cress again asked him for help to make up for previous difficulties, and they sat next to each other. Cress noticed that knitting with threads was too difficult, so he thought it better to start with ready-made fabrics and simple sewing. Miyabi was amazed that Cress was self-taught, but for now, he suggested repeating yesterday's project. Crest began working on a lap blanket, and although it was still full of holes, it held together better because it did not unravel. Karen's hammer was roughly suitable, so Miyabi did not scrutinize it, but this was typical only for her. He often made hammers in the game, and it became a habit for him. In the game, basic items were made with a button, but in this world, you had to gather raw materials, craft simple things from scratch, and complete tasks according to recipes to obtain advanced products, and without understanding the basics of the recipe, the quantity of products was limited. This explained why Crest had problems despite Miyabi's explanation. When Crest ran out of threads, Miyabi decided that the capacity of his inventory was still limited and began to look for more threads. Seeing spilled gasoline in the corner, he shouted. Crest calmed him down, explaining that he himself had hidden it. That morning, he tested his craft skills, remembering Miyabi's fiery charms on the pillow. He thought that it would be nice to have a warm blanket, but it caught fire. Miyabi noticed that the fabric ignites easily, explained that the material was not suitable for the magical property Crest was trying to apply. Precise control of magic could partially fix this. A hole was cut in the coat of arms, showing how to bypass restrictions and use magic regardless of his skill level. Miyabi carefully tidied up the mess and restored everything to a flawless state. Crest was impressed by his repair skills, admiring the precision and craftsmanship. Interested, he began browsing a book about this skill. Desiring a deeper depth, Miyabi interrupted Kreese during reading and turned the conversation back to his previous idea. Crest explained that he had invented a way to weave fire magic into fabric without complex magical control, and Miyabi asked with interest how it could work. Crest explained that the complexity of enchantment depends on the behavior of spells and how compatible the materials are with the enchantment. The fabric caught fire very easily, so controlling fire magic was difficult. Crest suggested weaving fireproof material, such as metal, into the fabric before enchanting. He imagined sewing 2 pieces of fabric into a pouch, leaving one seam open, with metal wires inside acting as conductors, like in an electric blanket. This allowed safe and effective enchanting, and Miyabi immediately recognized Crest's idea as brilliant. It solves 2 problems, namely a smooth, pleasant-to-touch texture and suitability for outdoor use. He proposed using rodent wool for the outer fabric, soft but fluffy and durable. Chainmail for the inner layer evenly distributed weight on the knees, and although it was heavy, it could be lightened. After finishing the explanation, Crescivate Miyabi noted that due to similar principles, it might be heavier than a regular electric blanket. He answered enthusiastically. Cress, delighted by Miyabi's approval, wanted to start immediately. Cress thought he needed to produce raw materials, but Miyabi surprised him because she already had supplies, and he, confused, explained a simpler method. They start with medium-thickness metal wire, wrap it around a rod of standard width, cut it lengthwise to separate the rings, and get many identical rings. All that remained was to assemble them. Miyabi warned that although it was possible, this approach was more complicated. The more complex the item, the harder it is to enchant it. Chainmail with thousands of small links might have been too complex for their skill level to fully enchant. Crest asked if there was an easier way, but Miyabi urged him to figure it out on his own. After a short but intense discussion, Crest suggested enchanting the rings before joining them. Miyabi noticed calluses on Crescent's hands. Crest explained that they came from fencing training, it was a royal duty, and he still had to practice swordsmanship. He admitted that he enjoyed crafting much more. Ashamed confessed that he had never thought about making something with his own hands before. Miyabi thought it was because he was a prince, but Krez gave another reason. His craft activities caused pain to those he loved. He could work hard for them, but he felt like he was just trying to compensate for his failure. This complicated his feelings. Seeing Shiffen rejoice at the gift made his heart heavy and warm. Igniting a passionate desire to create, Miyabi thought that Crest was speaking metaphorically. Behind him, a real fire broke out. They tried to extinguish it. But the table caught fire. Crest assumed it happened because of a heat source. The guards heard their screams. They ran in. There was no oxygen in the room, and it was blazing, so they had to evacuate. Meanwhile, Liz was worried whether Miyabi was managing on her own. She joined mostly because it was hard to refuse a nobleman, and she was a little nervous. She assumed that Shiffen wanted the company of a woman her age, and that explained her disregard for social norms. Of course, Abby would have done better, and Liz was afraid she would be expelled. When she dozed off, Chiffon said that the main gates were visible. They arrived at Meiji Ala, the Royal Academy of Magical Sciences. Inside, Null noticed that the corridors were full of students, all noble. Schiff explained that the academy was founded by the nobility. She apologized to Mel because she was not interested. But it was noticeable that Liz was having a good time. Chiffon asked Alice to take care of the luggage, and Alice left, throwing Lizzie an angry look. Liz already felt a pleasant dislike towards herself, although she did not know why. Shiffen called the list's behavior unfounded. She said that Liz is her friend and wants to spend time with her, which seemed to bother Alicia. Liz suspected something but doubted it was just friendship. Skiffen thought she would get through it. But he believed that Alicia needed discipline. Then she gave a tour of the Academy of Magic. Liz was fascinated and stunned by its grandeur. Walking through the corridors, she recognized famous people from the portraits, as if at a celebrity parade. Chiffon was delighted to see Liz having a good time. Liz admitted that she was scared to wander such a place so openly, and she would have liked to have a list. Chiffon understood Liz's deep passion for magical sciences. Interested, she asked what awakened her love for magic. Liz said that she had never really thought about it, and added that she did not need a reason to love something. Chiffon admitted that she never considered magic entertainment. When she previously called ambition poison, it came from her childhood, where political science, sociology, and magic were tools to make her a perfect instrument with an empty purpose. They saw how Liz devoted her soul to learning and still values her path. Chiffon respected her very much. Liz, blushing, realized that she had judged Chiffon incorrectly and thanked her. She had always wanted someone to see her true self, and Chiffon was the first. To change the subject, Chiffon said that she had brought her not just on a tour. Liz was about to ask why. An explosion happened behind her, and the man was thrown into the air. Chiffon calmly greeted the man named Coraline, and he responded casually, even though he was upside down. In the professor's room, Mel was playing with the staff while they met as usual. Professor Coco Coraline, a magic researcher, introduced himself and invited them to sit, although there was barely room to move in the cramped room. Liz did not recognize his name, thought he was new, but noticed his surname and then realized he was a relative. He offered tea, saying that here everyone is equal. Coraline noticed that Liz did not look like a student, so she clarified that she was a traveler. Chiffon explained that she invited Liz to show Coraline something. Outside, Liz demonstrated her skills. The professor was impressed. He tried to reproduce them, but repeatedly failed. Liz explained her technique of controlling foreign magical particles, and Coraline knew she was doing something unique, previously only theoretical, and that she had revolutionized it. Liz said that her father made it as an exercise to train adventurers who could not read magical texts. She considered Coraline a weirdo, but saw that he was brilliant. Coraline agreed that the hardest thing for beginners was to feel the essence, and she saw great educational potential in her method, so Liz had to think it over. He saw an opportunity to consult an expert and asked if it could have combat applications. The battle was large-scale, but Coraline doubted its practicality. He asked her to imagine using foreign magic on the battlefield. The main thing was to maintain physical contact. On the battlefield, everything could change in an instant, and to survive, full mobility was needed, so it was critical. Coraline said that he would rather learn to cast spells himself. He preferred to do it himself, although that might just be his opinion. He added that you never know what strange people you might encounter. Liz was not surprised, because classes in advanced combat magic often think that way. That is why she became interested in the magic of the industrial class. Coraline quickly decided that it was impossible. Knowing that she would not like it, he explained that the magical properties of different classes are fundamentally incompatible, like oil and water. Mages transformed pure magic into elements such as fire or ice, while crafting classes used magic to process already existing materials. The combat class of magical resonance could establish a connection with living beings, similar to taming animals, but in practice, that was its limit. Production classes resonated with materials and tools that were in repairs and enchantments, but they physically could not resonate with living beings, making her idea impossible. Coraline believed that everyone knew this, but her father was not like everyone else. Liz insisted that charging magic comes from enchanting techniques. She shouted that despite the difficulties, it was believed that magically created items could not be further enhanced, but the theory of magical penetration changed the properties of mithril. There were differences in the application of magic, but many causal mechanisms remained unknown. She refused to accept his categorical refusal. Their dispute escalated, and Liz said that people like Miyabi contradict common sense. Some tamers worked well with pillars and set an example. She questioned where he draws the line between living and non-living. Coraline equally insisted that she did not know Miyabi, but thought the same. Recent studies found microscopic organisms in golden soil, so he agreed that gallons can be tamed traditionally, but Liz missed something. She only confirmed what suited her and misinterpreted the data, yet still decided not to abandon advanced magic just because it was difficult. The debate died down when Liz realized she had lost and tried to recover. Coraline smiled, noting her outdated sources. That year he praised her knowledge and asked which school she attended. When she said she was self-taught, he was stunned. They reproach her for going on adventures instead of asking for career advice. Liz sharply said that private schools are not free and she was busy working. Coraline said that was the obvious choice. Because her magical power was too small for adventures, when he asked why she clung to an unsuitable career, Liz was shocked. He felt it when they held hands earlier. Having studied magic for years, he learned to feel it and acknowledged that private school was for the chosen, but reminded her that their doors were open to talents like her and that she was more than qualified. Leaving Coraline's room, Chiffon explained that the Royal Academy is state-funded. For general admission, a letter from a great guild or noble family and a recommendation from a full-time professor were required. There was no better place in the country for magical studies. Liz asked if that was why Chiffon brought her, and Chiffon did not deny it. Liz wanted to trust Chiffon's intentions and her belief in her potential. She told Skiffon that she did not understand why she was doing so much to help if she could not repay in any way. Then she wondered if it was for Krez. Chiffon was puzzled, so Liz said that the situation with Miyabi seemed to have been planned to bring them together. Chiffon did not deny this either. Liz thought about what joining the academy would mean. The guild licenses had expired, and it seemed unrealistic to combine student studies with adventures, life, and angling. Joining would mean splitting the team and would force Miyabi to return to freelancing, so Liz felt she had no real choice. She admitted that she was a bit materialistic. She wanted to cook luxurious gourmet dishes, but without Miyabi she could not do that. She longed to immerse herself in magical research, and refusing such an opportunity would be unwise because she desired it above all else. She insisted that she would not give up adventures. Looking at Miyabi from behind, she thought it was very cool. Risking life to save others meant growing up for her. She told Chiffon to just say the word if she ever needed her. Chiffon was initially surprised. Liz often quickly changes topics, and it makes her dizzy. Chiffon admitted that she had hidden some things and acknowledged that Liz has trust issues. But she was assured that her feelings had not changed, and Liz was advised to manage this trust as she saw fit. Liz felt that Chiffon was genuine and could be trusted. Meanwhile, Miyabi and Cress are extinguishing the fire, although it caused significant damage. Captain Cavalry arrived to escort Miyabi. Miyabi asked Cress Nugem, and he confirmed. He was the older brother of Alish. Miyabi, initially surprised, noticed their similar sharp looks. Cavalry thanked Miyabi for helping his foolish sister. Cress asked if the captain of the Royal Guard was on duty, and Cavalry confirmed it. After reading, Cavalry added that his master has a message for Cress. Cress asked Miyabi if she planned to return to Angolan. Miyabi said they could adjust and saw no problems. Cress hoped that Miyabi could teach him a bit more skill if there was time. When leaving Miyabi, he realized he had not discussed their next steps with Liz. She was not worried because she thought there would be enough time to talk on the way back. At the end, Liz said she received a full scholarship. Miyabi was shocked. She was immediately greeted. Liz asked if that was all he would say, and he jokingly said he would bake a cake. Liz clarified that she meant the future party. Miyabi was caught off guard. He was confused about the next steps. Liz insisted that she wanted to continue adventures with him during studies and asked if he would stay in the capital. Seeing her tension, Miyabi was surprised because he did not refuse. Liz was stunned by his ease. Setting up the trimming of their base was not easy and could cause problems. Miyabi asked if they preferred to lead Angoline or stay where Aliner and Redcliffe were, and Liz did not want to leave them. Miyabi realized he also had not said goodbye to the workshop workers. Liz was scared because she thought that due to his connections there they would have to disband. Miyabi lightly patted her on the head to calm her down. The 590-kilometer trip from the capital to Angoline took 2 weeks one way and was not possible all year round. In the year he proposed to become an adventurer in Angoline and simultaneously a student in the capital, but Liz doubted that it was realistic. Miyabi suddenly realized and imagined something otherworldly, a train. Liz was embarrassed. It was the hashed word train. Miyabi described it as courseless transport. She was asked to imagine a rail going straight from point A to point B. The transport was a metal box sliding along the rail. Liz found it hard to imagine. She was confused. Miyabi decided that showing her would be faster. He was making a miniature model. He saw this for the first time here, although in the gnome cities they were common. Miyabi said that once she understood the concept, progress would be quick. He explained that an underground trolley on rails could travel between Angolan and the capital. Liz was shocked. He explained that due to a mistake, circular routes create paths for rifts, bridges, and monsters, making the dungeon ideal. Liz was stunned that she could still be impressed and tried to understand it. She noted that these were just structures and mechanisms, but the scale was unprecedented. Miyabi reminded her that they had already dug a tunnel through the mountain, so it was not entirely new. His things were usually practical. The idea seemed intuitive, and she wondered if it was a spontaneous flash of genius. Miyabi admitted that there was a serious obstacle on the way to realization. He asked if she thought they could just do it themselves, but Liz firmly rejected the idea. She explained that infrastructure and roads belonged to the competence of the production guild, and they could not start such a large-scale project without permission while Landham was in prison. Miyabi realized that skills alone were not enough. Meanwhile, Nell Eve, who was shopping, joined them. Chiffon said that the head of the duchy had ultimate authority over all guilds. If they had the consent of Duke Trent Baldini, the project could have been implemented. They were confused about how it came about because they did not share their plan, and Skiffing explained that she was responding to Mel's request. Regarding their underground transportation project between Angolan and the capital, which seems to have stalled. Miyabi was shocked. Mel stood over her, and Nullquip said that when difficulties arise, it should be made a noble's problem. Miyabi believed that only Mel could handle it. He was surprised that it was Chiffon who intervened so quickly. Their connection is quickly strengthening because Melastin made another toy. Chiffon noted that the goal was to preserve Liz's license for adventures during her academy training. Details about Mel were unclear, but Chiffon now understood the plan. Miyabi asked to hear more about how it could be done. Chiffon explained that although the Guild of Manufacturers offered public works, her father had already set an example for such projects, so the support of Duke Baldini would open the way. Liz asked if it was safe to continue, and white chiffon was very helpful to them. It seemed too much for the selfish whim of a common person. Chiffon says she wanted to support their strengths. She admitted that people often did not trust her. She planned to help with training lizards and their release, and had a level 2 adventure license. Her real motive was financial gain for Angolna. There was a lack of resources in the territory, and problems with trade and logistics were constant. She understood the difficulties of trade between Angoline and the capital better than others. Apologizing, she admitted that her actions were not entirely for their sake. Liz valued Chiffin's honesty and was glad that she trusted her and shared. Chiffin, surprised by Liz's reaction, was momentarily confused. After this, Miyabi outlined the scope of the project, starting with specific data. From the capital to Inglinga was approximately 600 kilometers, and the shortest route would be by subway. Mel, confused about the metro, asked Miyabi to show the large-scale model. He showed the body of the cart and explained that it would go without horses at the right time. The closest local analog of the modern engine was the steam engine, but the game did not have a recipe, and there was not enough knowledge to make it independently. He proposed as a replacement a magical block of wind magic. Standing in its place, the model set moved along the track independently. Adding an enchantment that extends the effect, it could work 24 hours continuously, and with sufficient wind strength exceed human speed. Chiffon asked how long the trip would last, and Miyabi estimated 12 hours. Compared to their 2-week journey, Skiffin was impressed. Liz's eyes nearly popped out, and Miyabi's as well. I was used to her calmness, and he loved her exaggerated reactions. Chiffon explained her calmness by her father's unconventional upbringing. Usually the lordship passed to the sons, but her father chose her, and this caused disputes among the subordinate families. Due to constant complaints, she got used to accepting the unusual. Chiffin fully understood the situation. She wrote a recommendation letter for Liz and was going to submit it along with another report. They thanked her, and Miyabi confirmed that they were ready to return to Angolim. Liz recalled the last task she needed to complete. Chiffon advised Lisa to prepare for the spring entrance exams and stay in the capital. A report required for admission about the results of independent research, which would take some time for Lisa. Lisa asked Miyabi if he would agree to wait until spring. After a short pause, Miyabi said he would probably return and asked her to stay in touch. Lisa was worried about him, but he said that in the capital until spring he had little to do. His main goal was to start the metro project, and now he would be accompanied to ensure his safety. Lisa asked if they could postpone the departure a little. Chiffin informed Miyabi that he would probably have to negotiate with her father. It was necessary to clarify the administrator rights for SELPWAY because Dupchi expected benefits in return, and Miyabi understood her position but was afraid to deal with it alone. Skiffin insisted that he carefully define his priorities for the project. In high society, everyone had their own plans. Some coincided with his, others did not. Including her own, Miyabi thanked her for the advice. Before leaving, he noticed a delicious absence. Chiffin reported that Alicia was relieved of her duties that day. A month after saying goodbye to Liz, in the capital, Miyabi and Mel experienced many adventures on the road. They finally reached Angoline. Miyabi thanked Mel for joining him on the long journey. When danger appeared, Mel was not surprised. Their delay was because Miyabi does not know how to ride a horse. He was not prepared for the heavy snow. It was his first winter in Angoline. Nell said that it happens every year. This year she was warm. Thanks to her cute outfit, Miyabi asked where she was going next. And she remembered the Duke's residence, planned to nap a little and leave him. Miyabi grabbed her, begged her to stay for his safety. Nell explained that the escort was only for the duration of the journey, seeing Miyabi's concern. She reluctantly agreed to sit with him. They headed to the noble district, assessing their progress. Miyabi had memorized his speech, unaware that the guards were approaching, so he tried to remain calm. Passing through the gates, he was shocked. Once a beautiful garden, it had now turned into rows of vinyl greenhouses. When something grabbed his leg, he did not understand how it happened and feared it was an evil spirit. He realized it was just Karen. Karen was exhausted, and he found himself back at the beginning. Mel adjusted Miyabi's face because that expression annoyed him. Karen was surprised to see Mel with his master. They often gathered there in the workshops, but Mel did not remember him. Miyabi asked why Karen was at the Duke's residence. Karen reminded him that they had worked together on rooms to lure the Dukes. The Duke, impressed by their greenhouses, ordered more and entrusted them with overseeing the entire project. Miyabi was stunned that Karen managed on her own and was noticeably moved. Karen said she could help a little in her free time, but meeting the quotas for expanding Miyabi's supplies was impossible. They were also behind on deliveries and could not stop Karen's tears. Nell put her hand on his shoulder and told him not to cry. She called him a professional who has more important matters. Inspired by her straightforward words, Karen promised to show what his hands could create. Miyabi was surprised at how quickly he changed in 2 months. But he said it too early, because Karen began to beg for help. Miyabi's helped for an hour, only the water heater connection remained. He wondered whether centralized heating with heat distribution would be more efficient than placing a heater in each building. Karen considered it, but said that the client specifically requested such a setup. Suddenly Duke Baldini appeared. Miyabi was surprised why he was here, and the Duke replied that he was about to ask the same. He was announced in advance, but despite expectations, he did not appear. Karen asked if Miyabi was his client. The Duke said he had heard about Miyabi's successful escort mission, and that she excellently fulfilled his additional request. He increasingly desired a better future for Miyabi, and Miyabi thanked him, wondering if they had proven their worth. The Duke said he was surprised that Miyabi bypassed under such circumstances because others were waiting. Inside the Adventure Guild Director's office, Guild Production Director Georgi and Merchants Guild Director Elda waited. Duke Baldingi asked why Miyabi looked shocked, since the scale of his proposal justified such a gathering. The tense atmosphere in the room made Miyabi sweat and tremble from stress. The Duke found his idea interesting. The elder said that Swift's trip to neighboring towns was a dream of the Merchant Guild, but he doubted its feasibility. Master of the Production Guild Georgi, speaking against the plan, called it a waste. He joked that he had never changed, and while they argued, Miyabi wondered why everyone thought it would be expensive. He was going to explain, but the Duke agreed with both. The senior noted that innovative technologies raised great expectations, and in case of failure would harm state and private interests, and the costs of research, development, materials, and labor were rapidly increasing. The Duke asked if Miyabi had drawings of the carriage body. Miyabi admitted she did not, because there were no specifications. The Duke asked how much time he needed, and Miyabi said about 6 months. Aldini demanded a full prototype in 3 months to consider his request. The Duke pointed to the kilometer-long track and expected that the tunnel rails and the train carriage would be fully ready in 3 months. Connecting the angling Klee patch recorder required Public Works status for approval. Miyabi was counting on a freer schedule, but 3 months were completely unrealistic, even for him. John tried to support Miyabi, but the Duke noted that it was beyond the strength of one person. However, they could turn to Master Lewis for help. Georgie asks why the test launch has to be angling. The House of Lords' decision required thorough testing of all projects before the territorial union with the capital. Without confirmed data, the Duke could not approve them. However, Georgie compared getting the contract for the dwarf to the failure of house repairs. Elda interrupted. To prioritize the rights of the Merchants Guild usage in case of success and the project's public release, rather than minor details. Georgie mocked her desire for money, but Elda insisted that nothing was more important. Land rights in the country fell under the control of 5 large ducal families. As a public project, the Baldini House, which has full control, claims 100% of these rights. Today they talked about a type of transport, available even to those who cannot drive carriages, which would inevitably hit the profits of the Merchants Guild. From Eldstown, Miyabi felt the conversation was going bad and realized that control over usage needed to be resolved urgently. He thought the Duke had the final word, so this surprised him. The Duke acknowledged the opinion of the eldest, noting that the meeting was meant to resolve logistical issues, and Miyabi doubted whether he had any voice in this at all. He wanted to explain that his goal was simply to help Leza get to school. He thought about discussing this with the Duke later in private, but knew he wouldn't be able to. Seeing that he was tense, Nell lightly nudged him with her foot. She urged him to speak louder. She reminded him that a weak here has no place. As the one who designed and built the metro, he had the right to decide how to use it. Miyabi agreed with Mel. This ambitious project was for Liz, and he needed to speak frankly to do his job. Raising his hand, he shouted that he demanded his rights. This shocked everyone. Miyabi explained that when he proposed this, he meant personal goals, but the scope kept expanding. Zion interrupted him and reminded that this is state property. He accused him of arbitrariness for appropriating it and said he had gone too far. Miyabi sharply replied that if he cannot use it, then this project makes no sense, threatening to leave and leave it to them. Duke intervened and said that a successful prototype would secure a contract worth 10 years of average income. With such stakes, Duke asked if Miyabi would still leave, and Miyabi firmly answered yes. He emphasized that he did not need money, only the ability to use the metro as needed. Duke listened and agreed to include this in the terms. John doubted whether he was sure, but the Duke saw no other choice. He said that without Miyabi, they would be stuck. He warned that a failed prototype would cancel the contract. Miyabi confidently assured them that everything would succeed. Thanking everyone, the meeting ended and they dispersed. The one who accompanied Miyabi to Master Weiss was named Zanon. Before he could tell about the meeting, Weiss insisted that something more important must come first. Food was brought, and Weiss insisted that they start eating. Zen said he came only to discuss the meeting, but Wei told him to be silent and eat. Sid handed Miyabi a plate. He says that he cooked today. He examines the dish. Miyabi realized that he had relied on his skills for so long that he forgot the taste of homemade food. It was simple, mostly vegetables and salt. But tasting it, he felt immense relief. Meanwhile, the Duke thought about the trouble his daughter was causing him. In the next scene, the guild master's assistant was sobbing uncontrollably. Worried, Alinar asked what had happened. The assistant explained that the guild leader had not yet returned. He received a message from the lord's estate at noon that he would return this evening. But he was not there. The horse harness was already in place, so he did not manage to return. Alinar calmly suggested writing to inform the branch manager. Putting the papers aside for later, she said that this would give them time. Meanwhile, Miyabi and the guild master reached for the last piece of food. Miyabi, trying to be polite, insisted that the guild leader take it. The assistant silently thanked him. Zan pondered the words of Duke Baldi and noticed that he dismissed suspicions that Miyabi was a spy. At that time, Zan was following his lord's orders, but did not think much about it. Miyabi was liked by everyone and seemed harmless, so Zion wondered if he was not what he appeared to be. Zan asked why Miyabi became an adventurer after seeing her work at the Duke's estate. Zan said that with such skills he did not need to be support and could earn more in the production guild. Miyabi, unsure if this was a good reason, told how he became an adventurer. Xian got irritated when he learned that it was because Miyabi could not pay for the fare and had to borrow money. Zan called it fat-free. Miyabi agreed and admitted that without Liz he would have been in trouble. Zan asked if he came to Angoline for work or had another reason to leave home. Miyabi said that his parents died when he was young, relatives raised him, but now he is independent and does not send his salary home. Zun asked if he came from another territory, and the abbey vaguely agreed. When asked if this was rare, Zion said it happened not rarely, but most migrants stayed in their own territory. Interested, he asked how long the abbey had such inventory management skills. Miyabi wondered if this caused suspicion. Explained that it naturally developed in the process of use and that he always loved crafting. The story seemed incredible, but he did not look like a liar. Weiss interrupted and reminded Zion that he had something to discuss. Zion shared Miyabi's train project with the workshop to get its opinion, and the workshop was glad for the large order. Weiss praised Miyabi for his courage and said he had character. Zahn doubted if the project was possible, but Weiss ignored this. Saying that real men pursue big dreams, Weiss was just about to mention the workshop. He noticed that the workers were eavesdropping and shouted at them to stop gossiping and return to work. Miyabi told Weiss not to feel obligated to help if Weiss was busy, because Miyabi planned to handle it alone. The workers overheard and warned him not to underestimate how much work such projects require, fearing that Miyabi would overwork himself. Sid said that their winter schedule was light and they could reschedule it for 2 or 3 months, but Weiss insisted on starting immediately to meet the deadline. A few days later, Sid, the blacksmith's apprentice, often did small side jobs, and Karen, just back from the greenhouse project, joined them. Miyabi was glad they came and introduced Mel as their escort. They thanked her. I am going to the prototype construction site in the forest. Yabai noticed the fluffy snow, and Sid found it strange because he thought an adventurer couldn't behave as professionally as he did. I tried to set an example, but was shocked when Miyabi instantly made a giant tree disappear. Karen, embarrassed by Sid's reaction, asked him not to shout and asked if he was imitating a roaring monkey, and Sid sharply replied and demanded an explanation for how she remained calm. Karen, with a terrible expression, called Miyabi a monster and said such feats were to be expected, and Miyabi asked Karen about his training with the inventory. Karen boasted that he could now store lunchboxes for a month. Miyabi was truly impressed by his progress. Karen admitted that Miyabi was right. He was content to collect small items, such as pebbles or weeds from the roadside, to replenish the inventory. Sid understood that Karen's unusual behavior in public was part of the training. Miyabi explained that the training not only expands the inventory, but also hones gathering skills, so he suggested Sid and Karen try it. Exhausted from work, they fell to the ground and did not understand why they were there at all. Sid recalled that they were here for the subway, but noted that they had not made progress, and Miyabi calmly said that he had just finished digging the tunnel. Showing it to them, Sid asked in surprise how he had dug it in one day. Without answering the question, Miyagi said he wanted to start work on the carriage tomorrow. Remembering something, he announced that they would spend the night here, and a cozy little house appeared in the tunnel. He invited Karen and Sid to join while they settled in. He said and admitted that he had underestimated the heat of Miyabi. Karen called him a monster, but Sid did not believe it until that moment. He was surprised why Miyabi was involved in the repair project since it was not mentioned, and even Wise respected him. Sid, nicknamed Black Steel, did not allow Miyagi to steal the spotlight and did not believe he was a genius. The next morning, Miyabi woke up to noises near the house. He found Sid at work and asked what he was doing. Sid explained that he was placing distance markers because estimating by eye was not suitable for an accurate prototype. He had prepared the rope in advance to save time later. Miyabi agreed but remained embarrassed. Sid admitted that he could not imagine a train car but did not want to waste time. Miyabi wanted to get to the point and tried to respond, but Sid declared that he would not lose, causing him to fall silent. Nell asked if they were keeping score, and Sid explained that he was simply motivated and asked her not to dampen his enthusiasm. Karen Vok asked if today they would focus on the train car, since there was little time for testing. He inquired about Miyabi's plan, and Miyabi acknowledged many difficulties, but emphasized that the prototype was needed to prove technological feasibility, ensuring that it could move and stop, and if they succeeded, they would be fine. Phase 1 involved solving the power source issue. The test vehicle Model X was built from materials of the manufacturing guild. Karen asked about the rear mount, and Abby explained that it was a drive unit in a metal casing. By directing the airflow in one direction, it would move. He gestured for them to step back and push the iron mass, but it suddenly jolted and threw him along with the structure to the end of the tunnel. Quick saving by Nell prevented a disaster. Karen also panicked and thought that Miyabi was lost. Nell calmed them down and persuaded Miyabi to return for the toy. He learned to start with low power and gradually increase it as needed. During the second attempt, he carefully moved the train a few inches. Frightened but delighted, they hugged Mel. Karen asked what would happen next. They met the launch criterion but could not stop it. Miyabi's simplest idea was to absorb the poured-in magic again. Karen decided that without power it would not move. They tried, but it did not stop immediately. Miyabi, who expected this, was not as shocked as Karen. Due to wheel friction, energy was lost, and without constant power it quickly stopped, so now it was only useful as a bicycle, but it was difficult to control at high speeds. He knew brakes were needed, but admitted he had little understanding of mechanics. He wondered why there were no recipes for modern technologies in the game, and pondered how old trains braked. Calming down, he decided that perhaps he was complicating everything unnecessarily, because friction was slowing the movement, and he could use this. This idea also did not work, because pressing the stick against the tire to increase friction did not replace the brake. Eventually it stopped, but the experience traumatized Karen and Miyabi. Sid came and, not knowing anything about the metro, understood that braking like that was so dangerous. Miyabi began thinking about ideas, because ordinary brakes for trains and cars were hard to imagine for now, so he paid attention to bicycles and started drawing diagrams to see if it was possible. What he drew was too vague to be called an idea, and he was not sure if it would work at all. He used it every day, so it was the only thing he could think about. He wanted at least to have some physical thing to refer to. Sid asked if brakes from horse-drawn carriages would be enough. Miyabi had no idea. Carriages had brakes, and that suited him perfectly. Sid showed him that when you press the brake, it touches the tires. Miyabi was impressed. Karen was also impressed that Sid knew how a carriage worked. Sid said that in the village there were not many, but in the center of Angolan, you could find 5 at every step. At first, Miyabi wanted to talk about his incredible observational skills. Karen had no idea what he meant, but he said that no ordinary person was capable of that. Miyabi noted that it was strange because he had never consciously paid attention to it, as if it never existed. For him, carriages were nothing more than decorations, part of the background. Not only horse-drawn carriages, but also architecture and all the small details. He got distracted by the overall view and did not pay attention to them. To the parts, not just to the opening. Miyabi admitted that Sid sees the world much more clearly than he does, and he was very glad to have the opportunity to receive praise that sounded cool. He tried to look cool and said that the ability to notice details had been the main talent of an artist since ancient times. Miyabi didn't even listen to his boasting and wondered if they would get angry if they stole the carriage. In the next scene, Sid had to stop them because they kept doing many tests over and over again. They could stop normally, but the R&D brakes had several problems because there was too much vibration when braking. When they received the drawings of the wagon brakes, he thought it would remove the most difficult obstacle. They tried many materials for brake pads to improve friction, but it transmitted too much force to the metal and any pad would come off. The material they used wore out after just 2 runs and became weak to avoid complete breakage, just to stabilize the brake points. It was time to admit it to himself. He said those brakes were still A. This is far from practical use. After a whole long day, he arranged a hot bath for himself just to relax. It was a bit strange to see such luxury at a worksite. Sid asked what their plan was. They did it for 1.5 months, and that was only the testing phase. Miyabi said that the problem was in their approach overall, but he couldn't think of anything else to try. Sid, with a pitiful look, told him to quit because it would make him feel bad since the brake design was his idea. He asked if they could just reduce the airflow and go slower because the underground route would still be more convenient than the regular road, but that took away all the fun, so he didn't want to do that. While they were thinking, a leaf fell on the water. Sid blew it towards Miyabi. He continued to scatter the leaves around himself and mocked them, making them look like sackworms. Miyabi got angry and grabbed the tools to bring everything back to him. They laughed at how foolish they were. When they calmed down a bit, Sid told him that inspiration can't be forced. It will come sooner or later. He knew that, but no one could say when or if it would happen at all. 2 weeks later, Miyabi went to Hank. He said that he finished what Miyabi asked for and that he hurried and completed it this morning. Opening the door, he said that the device he wanted to have would be able to move according to his requirements. But he was still hesitant to tell him what he planned to use it for that day. Crest woke up and greeted everyone. The maids were worried because he had not rested in his room. But he said that his plan to restore Cochrane was going smoothly. It was a bit hard to believe that the prince was saying this before the people. Although he enjoyed working in the workshop, they asked if he had forgotten what day it was today. Today was the Verzon festival to celebrate the beginning of spring in the capital. It was the day he was going to Angoulême. His father wished him a safe journey. Crest thought he should be grateful that they had even arranged a send-off for him. Everyone was ready for him, and when he went outside, he saw Duke Greenville with 5 great ducal families served the royal family. He headed the most influential one, so Crest was surprised to see him here. He said he did not know about his arrival, and Greenville replied that it was an honor for him to be invited to this year's festival. He asked again where he was going even before Crest answered his question. He himself answered and said that he was glad to see that he was not fleeing the city. Unlike his duchy, monster hunting and fishing were quite popular and provided a good opportunity to gain combat experience. Crest said that he was too inexperienced in such matters and could learn from masters like Duke Trenton. Greenwell said nothing and said that a change of scenery could be beneficial. However, those at the helm must shed blood for their country. He told him to continue working on himself, and maybe then he would not be a disgrace to the royal family. After he insulted him, he left Crest because the guards were very angry at him for crossing the line, but they could do or say nothing. The captain of the guard of the Baldini Dakel house belonged to the Raven Cavalry and greeted them. Alicia watched as her brother greeted the royal family while she helped pack the carriage. She heard people talking about her. They said she would lose her maid job and return back to the duchy. In anger, she threw things into the carriage, and her brother approached and asked what she was doing. She said she was loading the cart and asked if there was a problem. Raven told her not to treat him rudely because it would disgrace the dignity of the Baldingi family. She replied that if he really cared about the safety of the cargo, he would pack it in boxes, not in sacks. She would have done so if she were the captain. Raven replied that it was not, that she did not understand how difficult it was to manage garrison soldiers. The cavalry family supported the Duke house not by force, but by loyalty. They were important guards and servants for the family members. Alicia interrupted him and said she knew that well. But it made no sense to be where she could not protect her lady. Raven did not react to her outburst and simply told her to go home. He reminded her to either serve her master well or get married and continue the lineage. He also claimed that he said these words for her own good. On the day of arrival at Zion for the prototype test launch, Georgie and Zelda arrived with Duke Baldini. The Duke said for me to show them what he had achieved in these 3 months. They could not help but notice the wind and decided that nothing could be done about it. The Abbey explained that this was an integral part of the construction requirements. The guards thought that an escort would be appropriate, but Baldini refused and said he knew how to defend himself well. When they arrived, the wind was getting stronger the further they descended. Everyone was surprised, but the structure did not allow them to get to the train so easily. Zion noticed that there was no horse, as Miyabi had said. Miyabi thanks everyone who wrote to her today. They said they had to set off to a new environment, excursion from Angoulême West Station. Now the whistle blew. The train started moving very fast and amazed everyone. Georgia panicked because of the train's movement. Everything was shaking strongly. Zion said he was not sure about its safety. Miyabi replied that no windows should be opened. Elder wondered how much faster this was than a horse carriage, and Aldini was the calmest, as if he had already ridden a train, and asked Miyabi to sit next to him. Miyabi sat down and explained that the train moves thanks to wind magic. Elder was surprised that it could reach such speed only thanks to the wind. He said that blocks enchanted with wind magic were included in the mechanism. It looked like an iron box with holes on the sides, so Baldini wondered what kind of device it was. Miyabi showed them a trick, and the train began to slow down more and more, braking only with the brakes. Accelerating the train to the required speed turned out to be a problem. Eventually, he decided to use more wind energy in the opposite direction. When it was necessary to accelerate, he engaged the rear block, and when it was necessary to slow down, he engaged the front block, and all this became possible due to the closure of one small hole in the engine. He presented it so simply, but it is impossible to operate both lever mechanisms without help. In brakes, they use reverse thrust and mechanical braking to provide redundancy. The passengers were still stunned even after they got off the train. Miyabi, of course, could not blame them, because in this world speed was measured by horses, and for them it could be a little faster than he expected. Bolding admitted that, when he first reviewed his proposal, he only half believed it was possible. But Miyabi accomplished a great feat. It was an important step forward for the future of this country. But the Duke said he could not invest in it. Miyabi was shocked. He began to panic. They asked whether it was because of the wind or the clatter, and they bumped into each other a little. The Duke calmed him, saying that only he could use it. Its enchantment gives the wind blocks a long-lasting but not permanent effect. The day will come when magic and M end and everything stops. It was the same concern he had about the greenhouse project. Miyabi asked what that meant. He said that whether it was producing more hot water than one could carry or moving the heavy mass of a large iron box, none of it was possible unless someone had magical power equal to his strength. He asked what would happen in 10 or 50 years when he would no longer be around to take care of it. It would have simply become a dusty relic, so there was no point in investing money in it. He added a condition to the terms of the contract. All further work must be performed only by the head.